was in a bikini or something.
Yeah, right.
Man never eats.
Oh no, I eat. Look at me. Although all I need is about 2 twigs a week and I'm good.
I had it all set up for canvassing board and then she shut it down and then I forgot to turn it back on.
Well, and I didn't notice Pledge of Allegiance on our agenda. I don't know if
Well,
we're
I
putting
had-
that back in.
I did not put it back in after.
I'm just asking you
I
because
took it out, so-
because I'm not talking to the board because it isn't 1
Sure.
o'clock, so I'm just talking to you about it.
Yeah, I'll
Yes,
put it
we
back
will
in
do.
there.
We will do the pledge of allegiance.
I was just not having comment with my teammates.
Hey.
Yeah, are we ever gonna get to do lunch with Dave?
No,
Yes.
I think we should just keep it this way. Lock him in his office with an orange or a banana or something.
An apple.
Yeah, some
I meant the other
grapefruit.
day, not you.
Oh.
I'm not worried about you.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
other day. Till COVID's over, probably not.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the question ever.
And I don't know. I wish that wasn't the case. I would like a little closer working relationship with the man. Because I don't know him like you guys do, so.
Get me through for a while.
Everything is on and going.
Got a couple minutes.
I left these on there.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was
Your little photo shoot.
the,
Look at the famous shoot.
did you actually read the article or? did you
No.
just-
I just thought I flipped it open earlier and saw kind of what it was, but I thought it would be rude.
Yeah, I wondered what it was.
Doing something else, yeah. And I forgot to look at the time to look at your bill that I wrote down my notes
Oh, you have 2 minutes.
that I was supposed to do at lunch. I have 2 minutes.
Something wrong with the audio? I show mine's not on. I mean, it's on.
Somebody, I can hear something.
Okay. My tech person's coming.
I'm glad he's your tech person. It saves me some.
That would be in your, did something else get changed? Where the mute is, there's a little up arrow right there.
Are all of you guys?
Wait a minute. Where's me up here?
They're off.
Oh, yes,
Or they're
sir.
not.
In duos.
Ours are off. Mine's off anyway. I had never joined audio.
I didn't change it.
How about now? Sounds fine?
Okay.
Thanks.
No, I mean, something that goes through the
Thanks
system.
for nothing.
I was gonna
Thanks
figure
for
out that, I was gonna figure out that cat thing that Ibby posted and put myself as a cat this week, but.
Oh, yeah, I want to do that. All right, it is 1 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Let the record show that all 3 commissioners are present, and we will start first with the Pledge of Allegiance. Here we are. Lead us off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, next I would need a motion on the business agenda.
Motion to approve the business agenda as presented.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the business agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the commissioners' meeting minutes from January 26, 2021 as presented.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the January 26th meeting minutes. Any discussion on those?
A smidge. You guys updated them. All you did was make some spelling changes.
Yeah, it was just-
Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough.
With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. Which brings us now, we are in citizen comment. We will, this is an opportunity for citizens to make comments to the Board of Commissioners up to 7 minutes. If we have folks on either the phone or on the Zoom platform, if you want to raise your hand. If you do, I'll call on you. Please give your name and your address for the record. So this is the time between now and 1:30. If you're on the phone, just unmute yourself. If you're on Zoom, raise your hand. Anybody wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
I think we can start
You've got
picking
one
up
person
more numbers.
unmuted. I believe it might be,
Yeah,
Greg.
7211 is a phone number.
Okay. Did you wish to comment to the board?
Good afternoon, Mr. Commissioners. My name's Greg Wagner, 303 Fish Hatchery. I'm a member of CEAS. The EOZ ordinance were written in 2004 for wind and with solar as an afterthought. Now it is here, and 2 commissioners still refuse to address the need to update the ordinance. The FEIS studies, some dating back to 1965, are still being used to permit energy projects. Every site for a project is different, so new studies should be done for each. The EOZ covers animals, water, environment, and other issues, but never are studies done concerning the citizens' impact. We need a new study called CIS, Citizens Impact Study. This would be conducted to show the negative impacts any new energy project would have on the citizens. You say you are concerned about the citizens, so why not do this? Let your actions back your words. Our county has over 600 wind turbines. That equals 1,800 toxic blades. In reviewing the EIS documents for wind farms, we cannot find any plan for disposal or recycling of the blades. At that time is near, as many of the blades are reaching the end of their lives. Will citizens be financially responsible for the cleanup? CEAS has continued to inform you of the toxins in solar panel. The EIS for Lund Hill Solar Farm does not address the disposal or recycling of the toxic solar panels. 20 years from now, that will be the environmental problem here. Again, will the citizens be financially responsible for the cleanup? Will this lack of concern and planning on your part for all new energy projects in the county, especially the 6,000 acres known as Knight Road Solar Farm, continue? There is a notice in the paper for the replacement of courthouse entrances, which will cost the citizens $350,000. You are quick to approve this, but when CEAS asks for a no-cost moratorium, which will protect the citizens, you won't enact one. Why? When do you plan to step up, do your job to protect the citizens of Klickitat County from these ruthless, heartless, greedy solar companies? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
I have a question.
Certainly.
Do you know the number of windmills in our county? Is that 600 sound feasible to you? That's a bigger number than I thought there would be, but.
They're about 2. We're at, yeah, that's probably close. I would not dispute that.
Okay.
It's somewhere in the
There is,
neighborhood.
was reading the state.
There's about 1,200 megawatts.
Sorry to steal citizen comment stuff, but I was reading in the legislature that it had some windmill blade recycling stuff going through the legislature too, so.
There's also a
That could
solar
be good.
panel recycling.
Right, so both those could be good for people. But anyway, sorry, citizens, continue.
Okay, we're still in citizen comment period. If there are citizens, if you're on the phone, unmute yourself. I do see, Sherry, are you wishing to speak to the board?
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. I'd like to take an opportunity to bring attention to Texas and its issues that they're having right now with energy. And I'm not a professional, but it seems to me from what I have seen, and I'm sure people can look into it, that their windmills are frozen, their wind turbines, and their renewable energies are having a very hard time, if any, providing electricity to people of Texas. Now they're having rolling blackouts. There's some talk about how, you know, going too deep into the renewables, wind, solar, and letting go of some of the reliable energy sources they used to use. So why I bring this to your attention is as Klickitat County moves forward in with, I guess, solar plants, and I hear that in some conversations, the commissioners do seem to be taking it serious by going to view another plant and looking into what these solar plants really are, how they affect communities, what energy do they get for what they are, and looking into the ways of the future. Again, why I bring it up is it the way of the future? Is that the way of Klickitat County? Is there new energy that is cleaner, perhaps, that people are now developing, that Klickitat County could look into that future and not riddle our landscape with wind turbines and solar panels, if there's a better way for everybody, the citizens, the landscape, the environment. So again, I wanted to bring the attention to Texas as they are having rolling blackouts. I'm not sure how we get, and another question I had, I didn't have time to research this to myself, is how does Klickitat County residents get their energy and where does it come from? Because when I looked into Lund Hill a while back, just for a second, I'm not sure if that company sells, if this is what I was reading correctly, but again, this would be the county's place. If they sell the energy that they gather from this solar plant or whatever we're calling it, do they sell it off, or does the taxpayers of Klickitat County get a benefit of having these solar farms in our area and cutting our energy fees that we pay? I just was curious where that energy goes, if the companies sell it out of Klickitat County or if it benefits the taxpayers. Did you, so just a lot of concerns as I saw some reports on Texas and the talk about having energy outages because they feel that I could be interpreting this, that from what I heard, feeling they leaned a little too far to renewables and something that was not consistent as other processes. And that also let's look forward to new ways that we can have clean energy instead of taking up thousands and thousands of acres of beautiful, beautiful Klickitat County. It's why we moved here. It's a gorgeous piece of land. And honestly, I don't like the look of the windmills, and I've seen the solar plants down in by Bend, and they're not pretty. They're not pretty at all. So, let's think about it as a county, as as we go forward. And I just had questions, and I wanted to point your attention to, is these solar plants really the way forward, or would we have rolling blackouts? So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sherry. This is Commissioner Christopher. I got two quickies for you. There seems to be a statement out there that the commissioners are hunting down solar projects to bring into the county. And I would like to say, at least from my point of view, I don't think that's the case at all. Solar companies are coming themselves. We're not out soliciting business. So I think that's a misstatement, not that you made, but that's out there. And as far as green energy power, I'm sure you can sign up for green energy power. It's just going to cost you twice as much money as regular power. So most of the green energy power goes on the market and is sold to municipalities that regulate green energy power being used. And we don't get a tax break, or a PUD bill reduction for that green energy. If you wanted to use green energy, it costs you twice as much.
Sherry, before you leave, which you still have time in your 7 minutes, but I do need your full name and your address for the record, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I just got a little excited to, talk about how, energy. It's Sherry Bosque, 120 Hewsome Street, Hewsome 98623. And I appreciate the clarity on, thinking that the commissioners are soliciting. But on the other hand, the solar companies are soliciting the commissioners. And so I again stay with, as Klickitat County as a whole regarding citizens, environment, as you're working for these purposes to the constituents, that we keep in mind the complete impact these solar farms that are soliciting our county, what it will do in the long term to our people, our environment, the looks of our county. Will it degrade it? As I believe we all want our county to be beautiful for futures to come. So thank you again, and please look into really what benefit do these solar plants give for what it takes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are still in citizen comment. Is there other,
Elaine Harvey.
Ms. Harvey, your hand is up.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. Elaine Harvey, 435 Hill Road. I just want to know what's the status of the Bluebird Solar Project in Roosevelt Bickleton area? Is that an extension of the Lund Hill Solar?
No idea.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that.
I have never had a sit down and a discussion with anybody in pertaining to it. So I don't know.
And my other question is, for the solar or water pump storages or any other so-called green projects that's in the EOZ, are they going to be classified as wind projects as all the other wind projects, and get slid through wind farm ordinances when they're not a wind farm potential?
Pump storage.
Klickitat County is an easy target because there's no solar ordinances in place at all. So it's a big target for these multi-million-dollar solar companies.
But Ms. Harvey, let me make sure I understand. Are you suggesting that the solar projects are coming in under wind regulations?
Yes. If you look under the Lund Hill and the references, the reference to previous wind farm EISs.
Right. Well,
And the energy overlay zone doesn't have ordinances for solar, for protection of the environment, for protection of water, for the protection of creeks that are getting dried out at Pine Creek and Wood Creek right now because of the Lund Hill project. And I work in these creeks. I work in Rock Creek. I work in Pine Creek, Wood Creek, Alder Creek. And these are important creeks that have salmon and steelhead and other fish species. And right now, the Lund Hill project during the summertime is able to get, dry out these creeks for their construction. And, that is not right. And that project was slid through under the EOZ, which is meant for wind farms. And I know there's some mitigation set aside for fish and wildlife, and I'm not sure what the status of that and where's that funds going to go. Hopefully it's going to go to provide some kind of mitigation for the fish and wildlife that are affected. But when ESA listed threatened steelhead, those are inhabiting those two creeks down there. They're ESA listed as threatened species. So where does that tie in to these solar projects taking priority of drying out creeks where you have those fish in those creeks, as well as Rock Creek? These solar projects, they're just sliding through under the EOZ because of the wind farm ordinances. And I have a concern for this county and the fish and wildlife resources that are impacted by all these projects that are coming through, including the future water pump storage. The raptors and the bats, they already get impacted by the wind farms. Now you guys want a water pump storage that's going to impact the mammals of the area and other species. This is a cumulative effects of green energy. It's not green when you're destroying the environment. And I have a concern for future solar that's going to come into EOZ or in the county because there's no ordinances for the solar projects currently. And I'd really appreciate if you guys in the planning department take this seriously, especially the EOZ. If you guys are going to continue to slide these solar projects under the EOZ, it's a big issue. And CEAS has brought it up more than once to have a moratorium so that the EOZ can be updated to include solar and other green energy projects that will be proposed. And this is for protection of the county. It's not a selfish request on behalf of CEAS or any resident that lives here. And the EOZ is significant in the county. It covers from Benton County to Skamania, and that's a large area. So, I really believe that the EOZ needs to be updated to include ordinances to protect our resources, public safety, and the environment, everything. And we shouldn't take these projects one by one and say, bring up the issues at the last minute. These ordinances should be in place ahead of time, not requiring us, the residents, bring up these issues to the county. That's not how it's supposed to function. The county is supposed to protect the residents and the county. And we shouldn't have to bring up all these concerns. And if the EOZ incorporated solar and other green energy projects or any kind of project, then we wouldn't be here talking to you guys week after week about the EOZ and our concerns with the solar off and on the EOZ. So those are my comments right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still citizen comment. Can be on any topic.
You have 5865 unmuted.
Okay, 5865. Please give your name and for the record. Oh, Dave.
They why don't want to talk to you, and they hung up.
Okay, so they have unmuted. Anybody else out there, if you're on Zoom, raise your hand or unmute yourself.
5865.
Go ahead.
Roseal Dimmick, 55 Tucker Hill Road. So the comment about not soliciting the solar companies, by not having proper ordinances in place, they become a shoo-in, which is just like soliciting those companies, because it is so easy for them to be in this county when they have no guidelines to have to abide by. And in the past, we have discussed forming a citizens advisory committee. And Elaine Harvey is a great example of a citizen who would be a great member of or a great resource to have on this committee. Because when we have committees that are just made up of economic development councils and people that don't represent the county in general, I feel like you're really doing a disservice when you're looking over these ordinances and thinking about revising them. And so I highly recommend that a citizens advisory committee be formed to include at least one member of CEAS or a resident like Elaine Harvey, who does have such a great background and passion for the residents and the environment of the county. And that's my comment today.
Thank you. I do see Deacon, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Commissioners. Deacon Letnich, I'm in Vancouver, Washington. I very briefly just wanted to let you know that Labor's Local 335 supports the Commission and the county in their efforts to bring hundreds of family wage jobs to Klickitat County. And I would also very humbly suggest that with the number of people that want to comment during this short comment time, if the Commission would consider limiting comment time from 7 minutes down to something more like 3 or 4 to afford the opportunity for more people to comment.
He's not a citizen of our county. He doesn't have the right to talk.
Mr. Wagner, continue, continue, sir.
That was it. Out of respect for citizens of Klickitat County, I was trying to keep it short. We're in support of the project, and a humble suggestion to lessen the length of time provided for comment so that more people may have that opportunity, i.e. citizens of Klickitat County. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Wagner, this is Commissioner Christopher. For the record, he conducts business in Klickitat County, which gives him the right to address the board, whether you like it, I like it, or anybody else likes it. He conducts business in the county. He has just as much right as a citizen to address the board.
Right. And for the record, this commissioner considers citizens to be just that, citizens. I'm not going to get into the habit of vetting where everybody lives as far as, and if we need more time, fine. But is there any other citizens that wish to speak to the board?
Sherry's in muted again.
Is there any that have not already spoken to the board? First, I'm going to give preference to people. If there is not, wait a minute. I'm looking. I thought I saw a hand raised, but what whose screens? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else so far. It's still citizen comment period. So Elaine, if you raised your hand or clapping, I guess that's if you wanted to address the board again, you could.
Elaine Harvey, 435 Hill Road, Goldendale. I just want to make a mention in regards to Deacon's point. We do have 7 minutes. We're allowed the 7 minutes, but anyways, under the Cypress Creek pre-proposal plan, they have like hundreds of jobs for construction. This is construction of the sites. And it says post-construction. That means the project is constructed. Post-construction, 5 full-time permanent jobs. That's it from this one solar project. Cypress Creek. It's in their pre-proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, still in citizen comment. You want to unmute yourself or raise your hand?
Sherry, unmuted herself.
All right, Sherry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I'm listening to citizen comments and educating myself, hopefully. Is it true that Klickitat County doesn't have a solar ordinance?
I generally am not going to engage in comment, but I really do. I really felt like I needed to clarify too. We don't have an ordinance that is specific to solar only. That is true. Do we have ordinances regulating land use activities that include solar? Yes, we do. We don't have projects come to Klickitat County and that there is no land use process, that there is not any review. That is not true. And I think people are making statements like that, and there could be that there are other folks listening that are believing that, such as yourself. That is not true. Any, especially major land use project goes through rigorous, whether it's in the EOZ or not, it's reviewed. All of those things have to be considered and either identified or mitigated, whether it's animals or plants and cultural resources, impacts to roads, people, everything. Those are all evaluated in any kind of process. So is there a specific land use ordinance that only deals with solar only? No, but they do go through a rigorous planning process.
So would the rigorous planning process be the SEPA environmental checklist you're speaking of?
That would be part of it, but they also, there is the permitting process also as well that they go through, which is a public process.
Right, and so, that being said, as I, as a Houston resident, have been caught up for over a year within the project of Under Canvas and its SEPA environmental process round 2, which, I can say that I found a lot of holes in a lot of things. So when the county, as I've spoken in public before, when the county is approving these mitigated determinations of non-significance on the SEPA environmental checklist, that they do a more thorough job, because you say that you do these rigorous processes. However, when they do get released to the public, stamped non-significant, and the public can find significance after significance issues with the project, and you leave it to the taxpayers to do the homework, and we pay you to do this homework. We pay the employees to do this homework and to protect us. So your rigorous process, as I can humbly suggest, I would like to be a little bit more rigorous, as we're allowing these multi-million-dollar special interest corporations to move into our county, and for you guys to really consider it, however you direct whatever department or whatever regulations you need to put as our commissioners who are sworn to have our interest first, that we have a more rigorous process, as you say. Because again, I am experienced very disappointing SEPA evaluation checklist, mitigated 43 conditions up front, wrong with a project, and so much more wrong with it being pushed down the constituents, taxpayers' throat. This is near and dear, especially near and dear across the road from me, that will impact my life forever. And the process, I don't believe, was rigorous enough. So that being said, I hope that the county does, as the solar plants knock on the door soliciting you, as you say, have a solar ordinance. That's to protect everybody. That's to protect your children, your grandchildren, and the county's future. And thank you, Elaine, for bringing everybody to understand that this isn't about one person. This is about a county and its future in all areas. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I believe we are
1 minute.
we have a few seconds of citizen comment. Then we will move on. Don't see any, so I'm gonna move us along then. The time being 1:30-ish, and now it is 1:30. It's a time for public hearings, public meetings, and bid openings. Our first order of business is a bid opening for the Klickitat County Courthouse Entrance Improvement Project. This is specific work, but not limited to, construction for the removal and replacement of the northeast and south entrances, including concrete steps and landings, hand guardrails, demolition, repairs, and alterations, all in accordance with the contract provisions and standard specifications. So it looks like we have some bids to open.
That sounds very few papers.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, we have one bidder from Lee Contractors LLC. The engineering estimate was $410,796. And
You have an address for the place?
20907 Northeast 72nd Avenue, BG, maybe Battleground, 98604.
You know, Gordy? Battleground? Battleground. Cross your fingers.
All right. We have a total bid price.
Do we have is there bond? There should be a bid
Yeah.
bond first. Make sure, because we can't read it if it's not in there.
So,
You know, you have to look at the bid bond first. Make sure it qualifies. Is that
Because it's
the-
not, then it's a non-responsive bid.
You've got it. Okay. See, that's a learning thing. You gotta do some educating and then
even if I really want to know. We've had that a couple times where we've had non-responsive bids and we can't, I mean, the board can elect, I guess, to do it if it wants to.
The bid bond looks to be in place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a total bid of $382,888.13. I would recommend that we give this back to Public Works to go over.
I'm sure he would like us to do that anyway.
Is that a motion?
Sorry, I moved, not recommended.
Yeah, okay.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
That was my so moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to return this bid to Public Works for review and a recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, motion passed.
Yeah.
At least it's within the
I
engineer's.
was gonna say, I'm not
estimates.
super excited about the price, but it could have been way worse.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman? I just asked Deputy Director Hunter, and he said that 50% of this project should be grant funded.
Right.
Should be or will be?
Is. Okay, that's,
Is that a motion?
yeah, no, it is.
It is 50%. I guess I could have put that in there the way it came, huh? Special.
Okay, our next piece of business is an opening for request for proposal from the Information and Technology Department to solicit proposals for technical support for Klickitat County's Mitel phone system for Klickitat County, so the Goldvale and White Salmon offices. The successful proposer will be invited to work with the IT division to develop a final proposal and contract that will be presented to the board for final review and approval. He read it, he did.
Okay, I thought he did, but Jeff wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Got a bid from Tri-Tech Communications, 25130 74th Avenue South, Kent, Washington, 98032. All right, Tri-Tech Communication response. I see here charges, customers shall pay Tri-Tech a yearly fee plus taxes upon execution of this agreement of $11,949.38.
Repeat the number again, sorry.
$11,949.38. There you go. Yeah, take a look at it.
No, but I would be interested in returning it to
I would,
IT.
I will make a motion that we return the bid to IT for his consideration.
Second,
We have a motion, a second, to return the RFP to IT for review and recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
I
Aye, motion pass.
really currently use.
I'm not familiar with that name, so it's obviously not Ben.
No, it's not that. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Do you know of what we currently pay off the top of your head?
No, not off the top of my head. I could find out and get back to you, but
Thanks.
Since we had one bid, I don't know that it matters what we currently pay, it's what we're going to pay.
Look at reject.
Yes,
That's true.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're coming up.
When I only get one bid, I kind of
Yeah,
like to know
maybe-
what we used to pay, so we know whether we could reject.
So, you see, okay. So next up, we have Washington Court Action Programs Executive Director Leslie Naramore for a review and update of programs during the pandemic. Hi, Leslie. Good to see you.
Hi, Commissioners. How are you all?
Well, it's the sun is shining and the snow is melting, so it's a good day.
Good day. So I know I'm going to be back on March 2nd to give you all an update on CDBG, but I didn't know that when I requested this, so I figured I would just go ahead and keep the slot so that I could give you all an overview of what WAGAP has been up to during these last few months with our COVID response. So I'm Leslie Naramore. I am the Executive Director of Washington Gorge Action Programs, which is the community action agency for Klickitat and Skamania counties. And please feel free if you have questions at any point to interrupt me and ask your questions. I'm happy to answer them. So in regards to the CDBG dollars that we received on top of the regular CDBG that we received for COVID, we use those dollars, it's for both Klickitat and Skamania counties. So we use those dollars to build capacity in existing programs that WAGAP currently runs, and also to open a new food bank in the community of Lyle, which is something that we have been wanting to do for a while. And so this funding allowed us to do that. We had a really wonderful group of volunteers. It was headed up by Julie Larson with the Lyle School District, who had been doing deliveries when school was out for kids who needed to still have access to food. And so that kind of evolved and eventually turned into a food bank. And when in the post-COVID times, which I hope are coming up soon, we hope to be able to offer other services there in the Lyle Community Center as well. I'm envisioning that we would have some of our housing people come through, some of our community health workers, and just I'd like to see a lot more outreach happening in the Lyle community. We were also able to bring on extra staff because with everything that was happening, we normally run on a crew of about 30 to 35 employees. We currently have 44. So that was a pretty big jump for us, and that really helped out a lot. Most of that was through our food bank programs. In 2020, we served 8,572 people throughout Klickitat and Skamania counties, which is roughly a quarter of the population. So when I saw those numbers, I was pretty surprised. Those numbers were definitely up from the number of people that we served in 2019. We also saw an increase in our homeless population. In 2019, we had served 338 homeless individuals. And in 2020, last year, we saw that number increase to 402 individuals. Our youth center, which is in White Salmon and is partly funded by Klickitat County, was able to reopen recently. And that actually resulted in 2 families who were able to return to the workforce. While the youth center was closed down and with everything else closed down, they didn't have childcare. So reopening the youth center put 2 families back to work, which in our little community, we were really proud of that. And we currently have about 10 kids who attend regularly. Before COVID, we had over 100 kids who were registered, but because of all of the safety protocols and everything that we had to put in place, we're down to 10 kids who actively attend. And we hope that as things kind of continue to get back to normal, that we'll be able to get those numbers back up again because we know that the need is there. Another thing that we have been doing during the pandemic is we had our COVID relief fund going, which was funded entirely through discretionary dollars. So people donated funds to help their neighbors. And we're approaching the $200,000 mark on that fund. And those are funds that have gone right back into the communities to help people with rent, with utility bills, doctor bills, car payments, internet, you name it. We probably helped them in some way. Another thing that we've been working on is we have a variety of rental assistance programs, which are both state and federally funded. And we had a little over $300,000 in an eviction rental assistance program that came through the Department of Commerce. That was spent out in 4 months throughout Klickitat and Skamania counties. We still have our energy assistance program going. That's a program that happens every year to help people with their utility bills during the colder winter months. And that program is still going. It's a little bit slower this year because everything has to be done over the phone. And so it takes a little bit longer, but we're still working on that program. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention to you all today is the child care grant that WAGAP is the fiscal sponsor for. And that is focusing on the Goldendale area. And we actually have just got Washington STEM to come to the table and do a feasibility study for us, which we're hoping to have wrapped up in a few months. And then hopefully, based on that feasibility study, we'll be able to apply for further grant funding to make an actual childcare facility a reality for the city of Goldendale. So that's something that we've been partnered with the county on. Both Rob and Lindsay are active participants in that group. And so we're hoping that we're gonna be able to bring childcare to Goldendale. Are there any questions on anything that I touched on today or any of the programs that WAGAP runs?
Questions?
No, I'm good.
I had one just more so that I understand back with your statistics. So the 8,572 folks in Klickitat and Skamania County, you said about a quarter. Are those 8,500 distinct separate people, or is that?
Yes, those are individuals. And then for households, it's 4,006 households who were served.
Oh, okay, wow. That is a really impressive number.
Yeah,
Frightening too, in a sense.
I figured it was food baskets or something, not
Okay.
individuals, yeah.
Okay, and then the same question on the homeless. So that's 330 or 402 this year. Actual individuals that you were helping, not like you helped them and then you helped them a month later. Do they get?
No, those are individuals. And the odds are that we probably did help them more than once. You know, we do a lot of case management because if they're coming to us homeless, our goal is to get them into a house. But yeah, that is 402 individuals.
Wow.
How many families?
I couldn't tell you the family number off the top of my head. I can look that up and email that to you, however.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm curious with the families, because I don't, at least locally, I don't hear about families so much as I do mainly individuals and or occasionally couples.
We do have quite a few families though. They tend to fall into the, you don't see them because oftentimes they're intergenerational. So they lost their home, they had to move in with their parents, or they're couch surfing, but we do have homeless families.
They're right. You're still considering them homeless if they're couch surfing, not necessarily living in a tent on the side of Sinclair gas station parking lot.
Yeah, they are without their own home.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you all.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
Good update.
Yeah, thank you. I'll look forward to on the 2nd, you can come back and report your annual report on the CDBG and go from there. So
Thank you.
Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.
You.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know. So our next is some unfinished business. This is consider a resolution in the matter of appeals to a SEPA determination of conditional use permit, recreation park permit, binding site plan, and designation of a hearings examiner related to the development of the subject property as proposed by Under Canvas Incorporated. So we do have that resolution. That would formally designate a hearings examiner to hear that case. So I guess at this point,
I think we've decided we're signing it.
yeah, we're signing it. And so I guess all I would need, it would be I would need a motion to adopt the resolution, I guess.
You're trying to kill me, aren't you?
Well, that's somebody, I
I
can't do
know.
it.
Well, you could step down and do it, but then you couldn't second it anyway,
Right.
so. So yeah, I'll make the motion that we adopt.
Okay, I will, well, I guess
I'm recused. I'm
you're
not-
recused, so I will step down and second the motion. Adopting the resolution in the matter of using a hearings examiner on that project. Any further discussion? I think we had plenty a couple of weeks ago. If not, all those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Recused. Motion passes.
You want me to write recused on it, right? Or do you want Dave? to
Yeah, what do you,
recuse on it
yeah,
again?
as far as,
We'll take care of it at the moment. I think we would, I want to make sure we do the right terminology.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
that may be all it is.
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
or is it?
We'll
You got
double
it.
check.
Yeah. Okay, brings us to easier stuff, consent agenda. There's 12. Does anybody have any comments or
I don't.
any issues with the consent?
Yeah. Well, I will make a motion that we accept the consent agenda with all 12 items.
Second.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, motion passes. Consent. Got it already.
We don't have the numbers on
We don't have the numbers for accounts payable.
It's it's in your basket
It's
there.
in the basket. It should be on the form. See, you just gotta train me. Gotta train me
It is on the form, but we were trying just to help and put it on the blue card. and
Yeah.
just stick it on.
to train us. Do I need to break this down into two numbers?
You just read the even.
Oh, it's right there. The cheat sheet?
Yeah,
Okay.
they learned the hard way.
I was gonna say, yeah, no, I haven't read it from this.
No, it's been on there since I've been here, so they
Was that in the spring section?
Yeah.
I
usually stick it in with the.
read the other pieces, but I didn't see this one. All right, then I will make a motion that we accept accounts payable warrants in the amount of $180,091.96 for payroll and benefit warrants in the amount of $752,312.09 for the date ending February 16th, 2021.
Second.
You have a motion, a second to pay the bills and the employees. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, motion passed.
Uh-oh.
There's a correction
No,
evidently.
no, that's my copy.
That's the same numbers that we couldn't find?
But you said the AP as that comes out.
Oh, that's your total down there, the 900. Is that what you meant?
All right, what did I read down?
No, that's fine. Sometimes you can't, no, this is, Yeah, you read the
Oh, I read-
180,000
so I wrote
AP.
it, read it broken apart separately.
Do you want the total?
In part. If you want to. In
I do
part.
sometimes I don't. It's not, it's in, there's 180,000 for AP, there's 752,000 for a total.
Say, somebody just gotta train me how they wanna do it. I'll do it any way you wanna do it. My bills for my business ain't near as big.
Well, right.
So,
Okay.
I don't usually have to ask permission to pay my bills, so
Yeah.
it's a little different.
Okay, that was accounts payable. So brings us, we're running ahead. I don't know if
I believe their PR or HR is on the phone. And I do see Jen.
Okay. Supplemental budget update. I don't know if Rob wants to come over. I'm just reveling in the fact that we can actually see
Oh,
humans.
we're a half an hour early.
I know, we are running ahead of schedule.
Maybe some more time for later.
We want to fix in the world this afternoon.
Yeah. With all that
It's
time.
Tuesday. I haven't handed you those papers yet.
Sorry, I know. We're running ahead, which is very unusual. Don't get used to it.
May I approach the
Of
bench?
course.
So Jen has prepared the proposed schedule for the supplemental budgets this year. And we just wanted to bring it to, Lee's already checked the calendar. It appears it'll work for your calendar reasons. And as there's some flexibility in this. Glenn always reminded me when you move the first date,
Everything, yeah.
Everything
moves
will
around,
follow.
yeah.
So these are, and I think Jen based these off historical dates from the past, correct?
Correct. I went off the same weeks that Glenn used in the past.
We're gonna have to train you to speak louder for our audience. Because the
I'll
mic's
work on
like way over there.
So we would present it to you just for your review, and I'm not sure it needs to be formally approved, just if it meets your expectations, and we'll get it out to the departments. So if you choose to approve it, we.
I'm gonna, he's sat here way longer than me. If these dates look like they're correct to him, I will.
Yeah, I mean, there is no hard date. I mean, we can do supplemental budgets whenever we have a need to, but there is generally, we have historically tried to have some kind of set dates or, around, just so that we're not
Right,
getting
it should be
inundated it should be not.
Everybody in the building should know what these dates are.
Right, what
and
these
that's-
dates are. That way they know, because we generally, we have had ones out of sequence where we had a real emergency where we had to do something, and it was like, oh, the next one's not for 2 months. Then we had a special one that we noticed and we did it. But barring that, there's no reason why we can't have dates that everybody knows, and they know that way when there's an issue, you can just tell them, well, you need to submit it in the supplemental.
Jen has assured me there'll be no emergencies this year.
Good.
That's good, because apparently
Great.
the signed copy of the form needs to go to Glenn Chipman.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, okay.
Oh, oops.
That's
Yeah.
why it's draft. That's why it's
That's
draft.
why it's draft, that's right. Yeah.
Well, that would make it.
Yeah.
Because I read that and I didn't.
There would be,
Yeah.
less money to move around.
Yeah, be like, well, sorry.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, what to go.
That's the process, unless you could go find Glenn somewhere.
There's my understanding of just having followed through last year with Glenn. The first supplemental seems to be when we find things that are missing from the budget or unexpected from the budget. We've already identified a few of those. And then as we get to farther down the year, the second and third, it's historically new things that pop up, or departments will wait till the second or third one to see if they can cover an expense through unspent funds, and so we're not moving money around unnecessarily. And then grants that come in and other programs, we'll do second or third. It can be a fourth, but it's my understanding they don't prefer not to do them on the 25th of December or 26th, but you have in the past.
make everything work out right. Sometimes you have to.
Yeah, sometimes you have to.
You know, we have had before departments were like, well, apparently everybody's taking the month of December off because you're out of money. And to move things around between line items, you know, we got to have a process for that. So, yeah, no, I'm glad if we can stick to the 3, I would prefer it because yeah, we can do 4. Oh, we can do 10 if we need to, but I don't know what world I would live in if we needed that. That would be really poor planning or a lot of crises going on. So
yeah, less crises the better.
Yeah, less crisis and better planning.
Better motion.
Where you know.
Better resolution.
But yeah, you're right. Usually the first one is to pick up, you know, basically things we missed. And I mean, there are departments are going to, I'm sure they already have found things where we forgot to include, you know, no new pencils this year or I mean, we've had them before where, oh, look, we left a couple FTE out of there. They have a couple of employees that we didn't fund. And whoops. Attrition. Yeah. So trial by combat, you figure out who it is.
Then for the new commissioners, these get posted in the paper and we bring them to you, and ultimately departments make their case for why they need the funds both in writing and verbally if requested during a public meeting. Then the commissioners can either agree or disagree at that point.
Then it'll be trial by combat.
Yeah. No, I mean, we have, you know, and I would want us to kind of keep the same posture of, you know, supplements are for, generally speaking, they're to correct mistakes as far as in the first one, and then later ones, unless you're bringing new money, new ways to fund any sort of substantial, you know, a new program or adding stuff, those generally should wait until the full budget process, not at some mid-year point. And I would hope that would still be the position.
Exactly what I want to do.
Because a lot of times the concern is supplemental budgets quite often don't have the same oversight, because they are historically, that's what they are. They're just tweaking, changing. And I, you know, want to be sure that folks understand that's not the time to be trying to
slip something under the radar.
Not that they would, but just be clear. It's a new board that might be, if I was a strategic thinking.
They would be thinking wrong.
Right.
Well, they're gonna have to get through Jen first.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the
surprises are never
well, and
good
apparently
thing.
they got to go find Glenn.
We've made it as challenging.
Yeah, that's a new challenge. Okay.
Look okay?
Yeah, I think, are we good with it?
Yeah.
Okay, no, these look good. These seem like the ones that we traditionally do.
We'll take Glenn's name out and find somebody else to
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for getting one of these pieces of papers that says you're finally releasing her for me to be allowed to talk to her.
Nope, not yet. Not ready.
Without getting in trouble.
Yeah.
You can always talk to her, Commissioner.
Yes.
Waiting for you to have all your stuff in a row and her to get up to speed a little more.
I think
which
during
might
that,
take a year.
to that point, I think in Greg's presentation, he's going to talk more about, I think to your point about understanding the budget and beginning the budget discussion.
I mean, give it a couple years ago, and I sat in every budget meeting last year. I could only get into one of them via my phone for some reason, so I have no idea what happened during budget.
Finance committee did have a discussion about that. I'll leave that to Greg to bring up, but I think that might answer some of your questions.
We got time. I mean, it's not a big issue.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
I think Greg's up next.
He's up next, but.
But we're way ahead,
He's
so
en route.
We can jump.
Okay.
He's driving in, and so it might be about, 10 after or so before he's available.
No worries.
You guys have any interest discussing the rest of my little document here?
We can take that now if you want. Gotta find your document.
Especially since yours is color coordinated down there. I tried to make it all color
There were
coordinated.
notes on the back of it.
Okay, whatever, throw it away, I don't care. Okay, so anyway, just researching, gift of public funds. And possible problems that we may have. And I think if we were going to do any of these, we better be looking for legal advice. Because I look at, my definition of PUD is a nonprofit corporation under state law. That's state definition of the PUD. Which could bring in I mean, you might be able to sneak it into porn and firm, but if we're gonna overlook all the, you understand what I'm talking about, right? With the PUD grant funding match program thing you guys were talking about a couple of weeks ago. That if we're gonna sneak that through, it's gonna have to be under porn and firm, and then we're gonna have to start doing checks on each one of these people that we're covering their power rate. So I would want to make sure that got a legal opinion from the prosecutor before I sign off on a PUD type of a deal with our funds anyway.
I believe that with the governor's proclamation, that exempted the gift of public funds.
During COVID?
During COVID.
And it might be, because I read.
Because that's why we were able to.
That is why we were able to do the small business grant programs. That's why we were able to do PUD stuff.
Yeah, but that was with COVID funds. This wouldn't be with COVID funds. This is with our funds, because we don't have any COVID funds.
It doesn't matter if it's COVID funds or county funds or state funds or federal funds.
I thought they put an earmark on those COVID funds that came from the state that said they could, versus this would actually be our funds.
Okay, well, I'm hopeful that it will be a non-issue, actually.
Well, and it may not be.
No, I mean, I'm hopeful. There is actually the potential for there's some other grant programs that the PUD is eligible.
Right.
That
I was just, I
Right.
didn't look into this for that. I looked into it for the electric vehicles
Right.
and the nuisance abatement.
Mhm.
And then while I was at it, something in my head kicked PUD, so I went and looked at what the definition of PUD was. But yeah, then the nuisance abatement, I think it would be covered, but again, I think legal opinion. Other than that, I was going to bring before you today that I want a legal opinion on due process under the Constitution pertaining to the SEPA appeals fees the county charges of $2,000 and $4,000 respectively per applicant. To me, I feel these fees are exorbitant and excessive and may deprive a resident or citizens of due process under the Constitution. My thinking on it is if someone can't afford $2,000 or $4,000 appeal fee, they are not allowed to argue their case before a judge, hearing examiner, or board of county commissioners in protection of their personal property, depriving them of due process under the Constitution. And then if that was the legal finding of the prosecutor to possibly give us some guidance on what that magical number would be that would allow due process without being an excessive or extortionate fee. That was my thinking, and I was going to bring that for you guys to either, I guess I would say agree with my asking, but it's my understanding that it's already been submitted.
Yeah, I submitted it a little while ago.
So you can sign on to my asking, or you can just, apparently it's already been asked.
I guess I'll wait to hear back from the prosecutor.
And then I did have one question on when did we start collecting the 09 tax dollars? Does anybody know off the top of your head? Because that's like a 25 years. Is the
Right, and we're gonna sunset, I want to say in 2024.
So it is coming close.
It is coming close, and that is why I've been supporting. Yeah, why we're getting that pushed out there. I would see Mr. McClure, he was on earlier. I don't see him anymore. I think he has it tattooed on his hand or something. He knows exactly the date and time because that has been something he's been concerned about. We talked about last year trying to get some legislation to push that, extend that out, because I think, yeah, we've only got.
Hey, Dave, could you call in on Zoom? They're talking about $09.
Yeah.
Oh, you can come over either.
Or you can come over.
We got time.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
no, that
sir.
was just something that I thought, I didn't
He
know.
ain't gonna show, it's his money, he ain't sharing.
I didn't know that, if everybody was well aware of it sunsetting or if that was something we needed to be, but it sounds like you're all got it under control.
Yeah, well, I don't know that we're attempting to. There is a, there's a
Because
fix
I
in the
was-
legislature right now that I did sign in favor of. Wasac
Right, I
is
saw
supporting,
that.
as far as is to push the sunset out.
Because I guess I would say I was rabbit holing our 125 fund dollars. The $09 going in, but don't we also put landfill funds into that too, or where's
Most
all
of
that?
125, that's just the cumulative reserve. So it's like any that doesn't have specific, that we have another
Anything
fund
that
for
goes in
sales,
there.
it goes in there.
So now
the
what
09
about
is-
KC dollars? Is that all 09 funds or do we have other funds going into KC?
It would depend as far as a lot of what gets brought, because the $09, if we have a project that comes that is, they want to access the $09, part of the strings on that money is that there has to be a recommendation from and consultation with the development organization, which in this county is KC.
But not
KC
everybody-
doesn't actually have any money.
Right, but so KC might hear one thing that's a building development somewhere, and that might be $09, but they might hear something else that has to do with a fire truck or a light. pack or
Right,
something,
and that would be.
that isn't $09.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
That would likely be
Question.
community development dollars that is basically just county, is landfill revenue.
That's
So 09, when did we start doing it and when is our sunset?
If I could get this back.
I just.
Yes. Yeah, why would? So you're saying don't write on to
It's
it.
tattooed on his head.
Yeah, I said you would know exactly when our sunset, if we don't get a legislative change, when are we going to be unable?
I'm not clear because it went
98.
from,
Was 98 was the start?
Yeah.
I wasn't here when it started,
What does
and
it
I'm
show
not,
month of 98?
No, it just says year of
Because it's
19.
only 25-year life on that thing.
it would be up 23,
Yeah,
2023.
So we are coming right up on it.
So, and I am not fully clear. I wasn't aware that initially it was a .08, and it's key to the first.
Yeah, that got
0.09.
changed when I was
So
here.
I am not exactly clear on that. I was talking to someone he used to be the director of the port of Benton, and he'd worked with the county before on .09 project. And he was saying he thought we were out to like 2035, but there are a certain number of counties that, and he wasn't certain, so we need to run that to ground.
Well, it seems like that should be an easy thing to know. As far as the trick, so you're saying the trigger, we started in 98, but that didn't start the clock because we weren't.
I'm not
doing the
certain.
full- You're not certain.
I really don't, I know, I just found out.
Because if
about
that was the trigger,
I didn't
then
read
the
any part
25.
of that in my research,
Yeah.
so I'm not saying it isn't there.
No,
Right.
You rabbit hole the internet, it's interesting.
Up until that conversation with Gary, it was about a week ago, I was operating under the assumption it expired in 2023.
right.
So that's
what I've been working
Put a
on.
question mark in my hand, so I just say,
Right, and I
it's
was
likely
just-
2023.
I was just
but I'm
bringing it
not-
up if that's gonna be affecting future, airport hangar training facilities. Stick a fork in it, get it in before 2023s. That's kind of why I was bringing it up.
Well, we had discussions over the last maybe year or two, maybe three even, that to some extent we might want to look at using that as a revolving loan fund or some fraction of it, depending on the project, but in general, start segueing into a loan program so that we have
So we can get it back.
a pool of dollars we can go to for economic development facilities if we need.
Right.
Jumped up like she wanted it to.
No, I
No,
do
she's
want
gonna
to
make
point
a
out, you
copy.
guys do receive copies of these when the Fund 125 is reconciled each month. And those are filed on your Google Drive under the budgets. So I try to keep like a 3-month worth of those, and then the rest are archives. They're there if you would like to access them.
Right.
But this is included in that report.
Okay, and I think that's sort of in our house, we aren't as detailed as you are, I don't believe.
No, I get it from you guys.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, no, I was just, that's what brought this up, is I was just rabbit holing the internet and found the 25-year sunset on the $09, and I couldn't figure out when we started, and I went back into when we started KC BoCC and wanted to make sure we were ready and prepared for that to expire with our fingers crossed that it didn't.
Well, there's some legislation in Olympia now to extend that, and I think expand it. There was one bill that came in that would just extend it, and someone dropped another one to extend and add counties, border counties. And we were talking because the Economic Development Association we belong to is lobbying that. They were pulling back from lobbying when it dropped the border counties. And, I spoke up and said, well, this is important to us because that's how we got into the conversation. Well, it might not expire in 2023. But right now, I'd say I'm supporting, however they get extended.
Right, right. The bottom line is we want that deadline extended.
Yes.
And that's any bill that has that in it, I have been testifying in favor of.
Right.
So.
Right. And there's another bill I'd like to support, and it's regarding a data center tax incentive. It's for sales and use tax. There's one in place now. It was the incentive was implemented over a series of maybe 5 to 10 years, and get dealt out tranches of certificates so that companies could get the sales and use tax forgiveness. We want that to continue. There's only one certificate left, and they have to file for a building permit to get it. So I'm not aware of any projects that are in that state, but that's important to us, I'd suggest.
Okay. Okay. Anything else for Dave? Well, we ran over here with the paper in his hand.
No, I didn't want to make the poor man run. I was just trying to kill 5 minutes before Greg showed up.
Not kill me? No.
No, I wasn't expecting you to run, but.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And it should be noted, starting, I think, 2 years ago, 25% of the 09 receipts go towards funding the Economic Development Department. So if the 09 dollars go away, is it
literally going to fund economic development, or is it funding the part of economic development of them doing the work for those dollars?
No, it's supporting staff salaries, and we went to that. It's allowed as far as we could fund all of it if we want. We had historically chosen we didn't need it, and so we used it for 100% towards pumps and pipes and stuff. And then I think 3 years ago, the KC BoCC made the recommendation that the department, it's most counties, some of the department gets funded out of that, and so I think we tied it 25%.
In case we, actually thought there was a project out there that wasn't going to make it in 24 or 25 if those funds didn't show up.
Right.
To get ahead of that possible scenario. So that was all.
Okay, Treasurer Gallagher.
Hello, sorry.
Thank you for being early. You're ahead of schedule.
No, I was like, I'm going to be there plenty of time.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. So no.
And it's been a strange day. We've moved along.
Okay, so I'm here with my follow-up to the Finance Committee meeting update. My points from the meeting, we did go over, and I want to make sure there was some confusion at the meeting. The meetings are Fridays at 9:00 a.m. We went over that again, but it's the second and fourth Friday of the month. And the time is at 9, and that allows Dave to make it to an 11 o'clock meeting. So I think I reported on that the last time, but we had some confusion, so we cleared the air on that. We went through, we had some housekeeping things that we did. One of them is there's an annual letter that we send to the PDC on behalf of the county, the PUD, the port, I believe, that just says that none of us are on any boards or anything that we're investing money into. And so the finance committee traditionally has signed that. So we went through and talked about that, and we're working. We did not all sign it at the meeting because we were not all in the same place. So we are routing. We basically made a motion.
We cannot legally do so.
What's that?
We could not legally do
Because
so
we
on
could
Friday.
not, correct. On Friday, we were in a different situation. So, anyway, so we're routing that through, and we'll get that to the PDC. I believe it's by the end of February. I believe, I can't remember. We also then went through and put the list of public depositories out, which is the same list, other than I think we added Washington Federal to the list. I believe that the PUD has a line of credit there. The list of depositories is all the institutions that everybody uses in the county, not just the county. So we have to make sure if I think we have Bank of the West on there because Hospital One has a line of credit with them, and we have different. So there's about 6 institutions, and they are all on the Washington State Treasurer's approved depository listing. The next item on there that we went through was we discussed the budget. And we had some discussions about, and not the budget of 2022, the budget of 2021. And it was brought up in the meeting of trying to go through, and there's been a lot of questions from the Board of County Commissioners and how best for staff and electeds to try to address some of these. I think some of the things that you were just talking about when I got in here. And so I don't know, Dave, if you want to take it over from here, or if you want me to continue down the path.
Continue a little bit.
Okay, so
I'll jump.
we basically are there was the auditor, myself, and then in the audience we had Jen Bartley and Mr. Van Cleve. And we were all trying to say it'd be nice to try to set forth any questions that you guys have or directions that you want to go to. For example, I believe at the last meeting, I brought the allocation for the 4 quarters of how we will allocate the landfill dollars so that everybody's on the same page. So we're doing that. So we were hoping to put together kind of a calendar or a roadmap, I guess, maybe would be a better way to put it, to where we could go through and address the concerns that you guys have. If there's if Dan had an issue or a concern about the 0.09 and maybe when it expires or whichever, we can put that on the list. And so then we would all be kind of working collectively together to go through and answer these questions for you guys. And then possibly having some workshops on Thursdays or something where we know at which Thursday we're going to have which type of items or which things we're going to cover. And so we would be able to also if there was things that impacted the treasurer's office, I would be able to kind of plan for that, or Brenda could, or Rob could, or however. But I think the kicker was, what's the list? And I think that was really kind of where we got to. We have some things out there, and I think we, meaning I'll speak for myself. I'm sure there's things that you guys would like to have understandings of, and I'd like to bring them to you over time as we go through. But I want to also make sure that they're the things that you guys want to hear about as well. So if there's something you guys have on your list, or we could put a collective list together. And so that's kind of where we got to in that discussion.
Right. My hope that I was hoping we could at least start the conversation today was, if we're going to, what are the kind of things, otherwise folks are kind of guessing about what you might want deeper understanding or knowledge or things. Like I was just kind of throwing some, brainstorming ideas about, like, you know, the different funds. It's different. What strings are it? Like you mentioned today about Fund 125. What is that? Where does that?
A lot of times, yeah, I mean, that works, but I think a lot of times, you know, him sitting there, or Krista or Brenda or whatever, knows what they need our involvement or opinion on, and anything in regards to that, they probably should educate.
Okay.
You know, if they're going to come in here asking about something, we probably should have an education on that, or don't ask us about it.
Okay, Rob?
I think, Commissioner, we were thinking in terms of maybe bigger buckets, background on revenue sources. You know, we can slice and dice it. The revenue sources above 50,000. Glenn had done a report in the past on that. You know, maybe a drill down on expenses to some degree, but trying to kind of chunk it out.
from the budget perspective, before we get into building the next budget, is what background you might want as a commission on the different aspects of the budget.
And I think that that's exactly what we were talking about, was whether we go through and do we go by fund? That was a thought that we had kind of brought up, and go through and just start at Fund 1 and go through, you know, what's the fund do? What does it have out there? One of the things that became, what's the reserve? And that's what I was just gonna say, we found last year at the end, some of the funds had a reserve that we didn't know was there. Do we need to have, I mean, we knew that they were there, but we, you know, does it make sense to have a resolution that says Fund X cannot go below $70,000? I mean, maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. It would be a discussion about that, and mostly so everybody knew. So if we then got to that point, we would go through. So we talked about going by fund, or we talked about going by like revenue, saying, you know, what the transfers are. Because the one thing in the budget I would say is there is a lot of transfers of money coming from 125 to different areas, or from here, you know, how all the funds are accounted for. So that was another piece that we had. But I mean, I understand what you're saying, where you're saying, okay, hey, if you're going to come in and bring those, and I think we're trying to do that as we go through. We were just wondering if there was some things that we could set forth.
I think you're by fund. For me, that's probably the easiest way to understand it.
Okay.
As if it was like the initial way that you mentioned by fund, and then you just broke down all
like these are the revenues of where they're coming from, and so on and so forth. And that was one thing we had talked about.
And or both. I mean, then same deal. If you get to 125 and you start talking about this is going over there and this is going over there.
Well, and that's the one thing I think that where we got to is that's what happens. There are a lot of pieces that are going all different.
Is when you're educating / teaching, however you want to talk about it. We're just the student, the best way that you guys think you could be the educator, facilitate it that way, facilitate it that way.
Okay.
I'm all ears, and I'll be here every day you tell me to be here.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any?
Sounds good to me.
Did you have anything, Jacob?
No.
Okay, well, we will, I know that Rob had said his staff was working on trying to go through and get a listing of the funds and maybe kind of an overview and a summary of each one that, kind of was there. And so maybe we can work together and we can, I'll talk to Brenda too.
And I would say for me, the reason I want us all to really kind of understand, and I've still got stuff I'm a little fuzzy on, is when we get into constructing the 2022 budget and we got to start having kind of some policy discussions, I think we all have to understand, because sometimes you may have a solution you think about, like, oh, why can't we move, here's this money here, why don't we do this? And it's because, well, you can't, because that money can only be used for this, and this.
For the record, he's talking about me.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about me too.
Because these are yours now.
Because that's the, I'll come in.
Far more involved in understanding of what the process is of this than I am, so.
No, it's all of us, because it is, I'll come in, I'll have an idea, I might ask Lee, and we have these weird funds too, like the Public Corporation Fund. It's like, what is that? What can we even do with that? Where did that come from? First off, there's no more money going into it. That was a one shot way back when. It was really smart, but it was for a specific project. That's where it came from. So when it's gone, it's gone. Just things like that, or the $09 as far as, because that might be one of those things if it's not going to sunset. Because one of the things I've thought about as we look at trying to have sustainable, that is a fund that dollars are flowing into that every month. Money's going into that. And do we want to look at, because there is a department that we are funding some of the staff there, maybe we tweak that number, maybe we shift more to kind of help the burden on the county general fund dollars or landfill dollars. If Dave's listening right now, he's like, what? But it is. Here we go. Don't slip on the ice.
He's one of those little.
No, but that's a policy discussion to have, and the way you have it, you can only have it if we kind of have an understanding of what's even in the realm of possibilities. And I knew that some of the 09 funds,
you could use some of the money to, or even other things for grant funding or whatever, you can use some of the money to pay for staff's work on that.
Right.
Deal, but I didn't know that we were actually funding part
Right.
of that out of that, so.
Right. So, and it would be, you know, we're fortunate. I mean, we have, it's really, in some ways, it's more complicated for us because we have landfill dollars that really are general purpose money that we can use to fill in where, so that's a discussion about, well, we have this money. Well, no, it is, but it could be that this money has these strings on it. This money doesn't have strings, but the way we're funding it now, we're using the string money over here, and maybe we move things around because then we can use this general purpose money for other stuff. Just like I've always been an advocate of why we, like right now, we fund veteran services through that levy, which those dollars, even though in a sense, because they're not outside the general levy, in some ways that's not good. Not that I'm opposed. It's like I've always been a big advocate, and for folks listening, I'm not talking about cutting money to veteran services, but the way we fund it now, we can only use that. We are very limited to what that can be. There's nothing that's, and since it comes out of the general levy, what we can levy, which is general purpose money, maybe we shouldn't be, there's nothing that says we can't use general purpose money to fund veteran services. But we can only use veteran services levy money to fund veteran services. Right. And even though, but it's really all the same money. And so I've often wondered, are we better off to not levy it that way, levy it as the general purpose money, and then we can put more in there if we want to. So it's just conversations about that, that you know, unless we kind of understand how that all works, it's really hard to have a policy discussion about the way we're doing it. Because we have not had a major overhaul of how we fund things since I've been here, because we've never had to. And we've got a day, it's not, things are still really good in this county, and I don't want people to think it's the sky is falling. It's not, believe me. But we've never ever had to even have a conversation because we've always had plenty of money. And so I think in some ways it's made us kind of lazy when it comes to, go ahead, it's Dave S. at klickitatcounty.org.
I didn't say nothing. No, I think it's all good. It's always good to, yeah, no.
So I think what we'll do is
in the middle.
we'll take all this stuff back and we'll go through by the fund part. I think might be good, and that will get us down certain pieces, and we can go through. I know for my office, you know, March and April can be kind of busy, so like that's I think another reason why Brenda and I were kind of trying to figure out what would work best as we went through this. So
your original thought is just Thursday workshop type coverage.
What we had talked about was trying to kind of go through and lay out a list out and say, okay, you know, let's do in the first Thursday workshop, let's go through all the funds and what the purpose of them is and maybe where that was at. And then maybe go through some of the transfers and then maybe do some other high level pieces and then maybe start just going through the funds specifically individually. That was one of the pieces that we talked about. The other part was going by revenue sort, you know, like, so going through sales tax, for example, and understanding where the sales tax money comes in and how it goes out. But we can do that all as we go through it by fund. I mean,
however you want to do it.
That was just, we just want to make sure that, you know, if there's questions out there that we are able to get them. And I think it's good for us because I would agree. I've learned a lot in just working with the budget more, and things come up and it's like, oh, we've got this piece over here. Oh, that makes sense and things. And, you know, so as we're going through, I think it would be educational for myself as well to be able to just hear other people's perspective of different things. And that will help, you know, make it better, and making sure that we can understand the two new perspectives and bring that into the mix too, because that you guys may ask questions and it's like, oh, that's a, you know, we can do this or that. So I think that's what we were really trying to accomplish. So I will go back and work with Brenda and bring something back to the finance committee in the next go around, and we'll try to put something out there. And I know we had kind of talked to Lee a little bit, trying to kind of work on some Thursdays. But our thing was, it was like, okay, we're into February. We don't want to continue.
we want to start having some discussions. And, if we don't start, then pretty soon it's like, oh, it's April or May, and then we're starting to get to a point.
Then you want answers from me and I don't know what I'm answering.
And that's really what we're trying to get to is, so when we do get to the point where because the budget process is long and lengthy, and it, starts way earlier than you think. I think in July or whenever the first letter comes out, you're like, wow, it's already that time. So, we just want to try to get some of those pieces out. And I think as we go through, we'll have additional questions that'll come up and we'll go tackle them and come back. And we just want to be prepared to and go through with that. So that was a discussion. Thank you for your guys' input. That was good. We also talked about a grant. There are some grants from Department of Commerce. As the discussion went, they are competitive grants. I want to say there's 15, but I can't remember. There was some set number of them. And the conversation came up about the PUD, one of these possibly being a grant that the PUD may or may not be able. And I think it specifically spoke about water or sewer or something, but then kind of maybe rate pay, utilities in general. So I know Dave was going to maybe reach out to the PUD.
Which I did.
And have them work on, if they were wanting to go ahead and do that. So, as an option for them. I did hear today, I think that Hospital One might even be trying to put something in on that too. So I think there's probably going to be a lot of people out after 15 spots, but
yeah, I think it's going to be very competitive.
Yes.
At least there's, they have the opportunity.
100%. So continuing to try to keep options open for other entities or people in our county or districts. And then lastly, our next finance meeting will be on the 26th at 9 a.m. And in the treasurer's office, we are in the midst right now of assessing taxes. So our date is looking like it's around the 7th of March is when they will hit the mail. So we will be updating our webpage and things, but and then the other thing is we did kick off last week with being able to file an e-REIT, which is essentially where the title companies can send us all the documents electronically, and then they will go from our office down to the auditor's office and be recorded. So Brenda had already been doing recordings electronically, but now this is adding on the real estate transactions from the title companies. So AmeriTitle and KCTC are the two. So we've been trying to get that up and running, and we're hoping that will help. We had, I think, 180 some transactions again right at the end of the year. So I haven't looked at the last month, but we're just focusing on trying to put tools in place that'll help us out. That's what I had. Is there any questions?
It's kind of outside finance committee, but do you have any updates or follow as far as the penalty and interest as it works through? I know on Friday, Wasac is definitely engaged in this, and
we did talk about that. I didn't put that in here because I know we did talk a little bit about penalties and interest, and I had kind of talked to Dave a little bit as being concerned, not only for the county, but for the junior districts in our county. So if they do get rid of some of that and our collection rate does kind of drop a little bit. I've heard nothing new on that, but I haven't.
Me either.
Yeah, but I get so many emails. I'm working on taxes right now, so I kind of try to go through my email list from legislative because it seems like there's a hot button and you can have 9. I'm sure you guys are the same. Yeah. The associations will blast out a bunch and you're like, whoa,
emergency.
You're trying to get a data request. Yes, you got to have all this stuff. So, so I haven't heard anything new on that. But I have kind of had my head in the sand on the tax assessment. So, but as of Friday, hadn't heard. But I really, this is the 3rd year in a row they're really making a hard go at it. I have nothing new though.
Okay. Well, my flight, because I had an update on right after that's my 11 o'clock. There wasn't really any update other than I got the sense that it's the sense is that it's not going to go anywhere. That the brief was really, we're not out of the woods yet. Mm-hmm. But so I'm like, well, that's positive.
That is,
because I thought we might be just dead on arrival as far as, but understanding that even with cutoff dates coming, anything that's necessary to implement the budget doesn't have a cutoff date until they actually leave the capital,
Correct.
In April.
Right.
So.
The other thing too, King County did come out with their date for tax collection, and they're continuing to leave it on April 30th.
Okay.
Spokane County did push theirs out, I want to say, to the end of June or the 1st of July. They're the only county in the state, but their representatives are the same ones that are sponsoring the bill, trying to get rid of the deputy treasurer of Spokane County is Bowles, who is the representative. So he is
no conflict there at all.
Yes. So it's kind of but so King County coming out and saying they're going to stay firm on the date, that's helpful too, because there are a lot of people like Chelan is the one who's the biggest yeller about the whole thing, is because if something happens in King County, people are like, oh, well, I thought it was and it's like, no, King County might have pushed their date, for 30 days, but Chelan County didn't. And so people who have a house over there or something, or he's always constantly, trying to battle that on keeping things consistent. So sounds like everybody's going to continue with an April 30 collection date.
One thing Jen and I reported to the finance committee as well is that we're tracking the third stimulus, more than likely going to be released in the next 30 days, and what that looks like, and follow it from committee through. Like right now, they're talking about direct payments to cities and counties based on population, and what does that look like and how much, and work through the finance committee and the grant committee or the grant group to figure out, when we know how much it is and when it's going to arrive, the potential uses for it. But we are tracking that as it's working its way through the Congress.
Okay.
I think it's a good chance we're going to get something.
Yeah, so we'll see. Okay, any questions for the folks?
Thank you, commissioners.
Yep, thanks, Greg. Easy. Okay. Still running a little bit ahead. I don't know if I see Mr. Yes, he is. Prosecutor Cannell, are you available now if you had anything?
Yes, Joe.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good to see you folks. So I was hoping to address a couple of points. Did receive a request earlier that was referenced in the board meeting. I just want to point out to the board that to invoke a request for a formal legal opinion requires the consent of the board as a whole or the chairperson. So I just wanted to remind that,
that was, for the record, that was what I thought was going to happen. I wasn't trying to bypass the board with that request.
Sure. No, I mean, everything's new. So that's why I just wanted to take the opportunity to point out that the chairperson can elect to directly request the formation of a written opinion. Otherwise, it needs to be the legislative authority. So it would need to be a quorum. Second, I do have some very good news to pass on the litigation stand front that there's a matter of public record at this point. So the county with its partner, the city of the Dalles, was named as defendants from some folks that managed the airport. This contract was terminated by the city and the county mutual decision about 2 years ago. There's been ongoing litigation. We did get word this morning that the judge in Wasco County granted a partial summary judgment motion on behalf of both the city and the county. The exact issue before the court was to limit the potential exposure of liability, the plaintiffs and their pleadings, and this is all public, so that's not requesting executive this time unless you folks want to have a discussion. But in the pleadings, they had suggested that they were entitled to damages for not only the term of the contract that was terminated, but the potential renewal terms under the language of the contract. So the judge this morning ruled that was not a valid theory of the plaintiff, limiting any possible exposure to damages to the 3 years remaining in the contract that was terminated. So that's very good news for the city and the county. Previously, the plaintiff had been demanding, I think it was approximately $30 million in their pleadings. They were making settlement demands well in excess of $1 million. So it was just, that's where they're coming from. So we're much more hopeful at this point. So just want to pass along that news and be happy to take any questions from the board if there are any.
Questions for the prosecutor?
Would you like the board to officially, I don't know, vote on my request that was submitted to you?
Yes.
Okay, so there we go. I made my little presentation on the appeals fees that I think they're in excess and against due process, so have at her, gentlemen. My thinking is, what could it hurt? If we're gonna get sued, what could it hurt? To get a legal opinion.
I'm fine with getting a legal opinion as to the, appeal fees. I mean, I guess I would want to know that. My assumption would be, since these appeal fees have been in place for a decade, about that, this issue would have been settled at the time, but I don't actually know that, as far as that the dollar figures were not considered to be depriving people of due process. But I don't know that, so I'm fine with getting an update on that. So
prosecutors willing to do it.
yeah, if you're willing to do it. And I'm happy to, I'll sign it as the chair. I don't have any issue with it.
I mean, he might know the answer right on the top of his head without a legal opinion. And if that's the case, that's fine too, so.
Gentlemen, I've received a request. I understand it's authorized by the full board and be taken under consideration at this point. I don't have a time frame on the answer, however.
Okay. All right.
I'm not in a hurry, sir, so whenever you get around to it is fine with me.
Okay.
Well, I'll treat it with more urgency than that, but I just can't make any promises right now.
Right. Okay, well, if there's nothing else for the prosecutor, we do have the assessor is here, so maybe she wants to discuss.
I don't know, we can adjourn first.
No, I don't think so.
Prosecutor.
I'm here to speak with David and you all on pending litigation.
Oh.
So
Okay.
are you still planning on having that discussion, David?
There was a very basic conversation that occurred. We can go into that. I would request it be at the end of the docket to not inconvenience members of the public. But I need to follow up on that voicemail you left me on Friday afternoon, Krista. So I was going to wait till next month, Tuesday actually.
Next week, I think is what.
I know we were talking about nuisance abatement and board pending, and I think board pending is going to be a little longer than normal.
Yeah.
At least I have some fun stuff to bring.
Okay.
Okay.
So next week then?
That is my hope. Correct. I apologize for the breakdown of communication there. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Since you're sitting here, I'm assuming I know what it's for, but might have to have those conversations one-on-one.
Well, it's.
I know why you're sitting here.
Yeah.
Is there anything expediting on that soon over the next week?
Not the next week, no. The appeal to the BTA for regional landfill has been scheduled for this year.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, if you don't mind waiting until next week, sounds like Mr. Prosecutor wants to wait till next week. So.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I'm on his schedule, so.
Okay, well, we will make sure we schedule adequate time next week to have the discussion.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
I have not received anything back so far on their deadline that I gave them.
Cool. That's good. I'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's, unless we have something for the prosecutor, then thank you, sir. we will move on to board pending. Board, what do you want to pend on?
Well, I thought we were
We have
supposed to
some
be
stuff.
bringing homework for nuisance abatement,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah.
Well, we discussed the short-term rentals this morning.
Yes, we did.
So I think the nuisance abatement, the homework was, or at least my homework was on to give some thought to where, if and when, where are we gonna house it, the discussion on the code compliance facilitator. Okay. Wow, you really did your homework.
Just brainstorming ideas, costs, where we can get our money from, where we can save our money. Unfortunately, a lot of these are check on the legalities of this and the legalities of that, so.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of it is what we were talking about before. I think, I don't know, I would just say, take it in stages and walk. our way
Okay,
through.
walk me through what you did here.
Well, I mean, we all have the basic process of how we have it now. I still like the idea of having some kind of a citizen complaint board, whether it's 3 people or 5 people. So ideally, if I make a complaint against you right now, it's an anonymous complaint that goes to Lynn and I don't have to stand behind my complaint. I think if you say, wait a minute, this isn't trash, I should have to take my complaint to the nuisance board and come out of the closet, not be a whiny little neighbor, and actually go make my complaint. If I don't make my complaint, if I file for a hearing to the nuisance board and then don't show up, the complaint's gone. I mean, if you're not willing to stand behind your complaint, I don't want to hear your whiny complaint. You should be able to stand behind it. I think that's going to eliminate, if we do that, I think that's going to eliminate a lot of the whiny neighbor syndrome, which is part of the complaints we have now. That, hey, your dog was in my yard last week, so I'm going to file a complaint against you this week. I know of one of those personally, so that's why I like the board idea, which is kind of written down in there. And then I know we talked about what department it would go in. And to me, if you eliminate the whiny neighbor, which you might do in a board or a hearing situation that's kind of spelled out there. Building's gonna handle theirs, planning's gonna handle theirs, solid or public health's gonna handle theirs. Pretty much everything that's left is solid waste. It's gonna be trash, rubbish, old cars, old vehicles. You can either put this person in solid waste, or I personally think if they show up with a badge and a uniform, they're gonna get more compliance. At least look tougher, might have a little more bite. So that's my opinion on where they should be housed anyway. But then again, we just hired a new litter pickup person, which I actually thought we were gonna wait until COVID was over to do that. So I was kind of surprised when that happened. But does the litter pickup person, and I'm not questioning, I'm just asking the question. If this ends up getting cleaned up because building is now handling their own, public health is handling sewer runoff, short-term rentals isn't here anymore. Living in trailers, don't whine about your neighbor living in a trailer, it's legal. You're gonna drop your nuisance complaints to 1/3 of what you have now. Is it really a full-time position? Or do we make the litter pickup person also nuisance abatement person? Just ideas.
I think with the numbers that Lynn gave us, it doesn't eliminate over 50% with, if we go forward with the trailer and STRs and all that.
I thought hers was about 50%.
It'll eliminate about 50% of those, but just building, what was it? The 50% of the complaints by themselves were code compliance complaints, in essence, which is building.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. So the code facilitator, as your term was, which I do like that. Half of those complaints are gonna be off his plate right away because he's gonna submit them to Lynn, and Lynn's now handling them, and they're not on his plate anymore. Unless she needs his help with them. That's the way I was understanding Lynn's take on that anyway, is that she would handle all of the stuff in her department, pertaining to her department.
I think it wouldn't be Lynn's, it would be that person that would manage the building stuff. It's the environmental stuff that you're gonna have to facilitate and work with planning, maybe natural resources, whatever. And then, you know, the solid waste, you're gonna be working with solid waste department, hopefully. But like the building is probably where the majority of the complaints will likely always be, I think.
Well, that's my thinking, is it's gonna be building and trash. And I thought the facilitator wasn't gonna be dealing with the building part of it, because Lynn was supposed to be doing that, or going to be doing that.
I don't remember it being understood that way, because Lynn.
I could be wrong.
Lynn doesn't have the time for that. Like dealing with the complaints herself, that was.
I thought she wanted the rest of this off her plate, and those would all be done in time as people get permits, but I also didn't think we would have that much environmental, because we don't have the enforcement arm to environmental ecology does, so.
Well, a lot of it is shorelines, within shorelines permit, substantial shorelines development, all of that is still within planning.
So if I notice somebody on the White Salmon River mowed down their riparian area on the side of the stream bed, which is fully illegal, what, do we write the fine for that?
We can.
Do we have it in our code to write the fine for that, or is that, I mean, ecology writing the fine for that? I don't know. I mean, if it's up to us, we're the ones that have to write the fine, and we need to have it in our stuff and what the fine is and enforce it. But I didn't know that was a county thing to enforce that kind of thing.
It's part of the, critical areas ordinance, shorelines management ordinance.
I just didn't know we got the stick.
We don't have a great stick because we didn't really write it in there, but we do have, a stick.
The letter writing ability that says, please don't do that anymore.
So back to the building department and compliance. You're still gonna have, if, whether it's 50% are building code violations, code violations. I did not get the impression that Lynn was saying she would be, happy to, just handle those necessarily. I think they should be handled. I'm, as far as the stuff that's specific to one department or other, it probably does make more sense to have those handled within those departments that what the violation is, rather than, our old system was we had a compliance officer that was
one size fits all.
And they had to get, if it was a part of what the complaint was, something that wasn't in the building department, they would have to try to either get relevant expertise from one of the other departments, borrow it, or kind of be out there on their own. But you're still going to have, somebody's going to have to coordinate all the activity, whether it's a facilitator or whatever. And I thought the question, at least the question I was contemplating on, was what department should that person be housed? Is it in solid waste? Does it stay in the building department?
Well, and that's just it. I know we're discussing where they're going to be housed, but the only reason I'm even in my head considering I'm not housing them in the building department when 50% of the issues are building department related is if those 50% of the issues aren't there anymore. Because that's what I thought. Lynn said, I will do my part and I will do the building stuff. but all the rest of this isn't me, so get it off my plate.
Right.
So I was under the impression she was doing that. I mean, we'll need clarification on that because we apparently heard it all differently. So next time when we talk to her, we'll talk about that.
Right.
Which will then bring up the discussion on where we're housing this person, and we'll continue that discussion. Other than that, I just kind of came up with ideas on how to make it cheaper, because like I said, I don't think, I love the idea of Jake's, dropping off the drop boxes. Again, you could have use of public funds, but, to help the poor and infirm. I so see that passing because it is a public service. It is a health hazard to have trash, rats, mice, disease. So I think it would fly, but I think we should also look out and holler at our neighbors of our public service and see if they're willing to be good neighbors and donate drop boxes too. What's the worst they can say? No, right? I also have ideas in here of checking the legalities of using the litter pickup crews. Can we use jail inmates? Volunteers from the public, your neighbors, Facebook, whatever, to be able to do cleanups without posting or without having to do liens. And then page 2 is essentially all the hopefully cost savings to bring down the price of abatements when we are doing liens, which come back into county workers and possibly hiring day laborers from WorkSource over here, summer internship program that is beloved so well in our county. Let's put them to work picking up some trash too.
First is one thing, liens are and always have been, they are at the discretion of the Board of County Commissioners. Every lien we've ever done for abatement, it has to come before the board, and the board
right.
has to authorize it, and then they do get filed. And I don't know that we've never not filed the lien, because again, this is after the fact when we've done the abatement, here's the cost.
Right, and if you're paying 50 grand or something, that's, heck yeah.
Well, for anything, frankly, it's like, let's have a discussion again. I've had to clean up my own place before. Right. Why should the public, because I don't want to do it, then I should have to pay for that. I think that, times we've had questions is if it is somebody that's infirm or there's an issue, then they just can't do
the same scenario. If you know that you're never going to get the money back out of it, I guess I'd say my point is if you can get the job done for $4 grand with the new approach, is it really worth putting on the lien that you may get 50 years from now when the people die and the property sells? You might get your $4 grand back someday. Sometimes it's not worth the process depending on how much money you have in it too. So, but no, not that I have any problem with if we spend taxpayer dollars to clean it up by filing a lien on the property. You will never hear me arguing that, because I agree that the taxpayers next to them shouldn't have to pay for it.
Right.
I'm just thinking sometimes it might cost more to get the lien done than what you spent on the property.
Well, I think you did a great job. Thank you for taking the time to think of this, think outside the box. That was my whole thought when I went into it in the first place, was trying to think of ways that we can turn this position into more facilitation role to try to get people voluntarily on board. That's the only, because of that volunteer facilitated goal set, is the only reason that I think that the sheriff's department might not be the best place for it. And building would be, is we can, if you show up with a badge, that can turn people off.
Yeah, and I understand that if you're trying to be a facilitator, right, as opposed to enforcement, But I guess it kind of depends on which way you're going, because one of my ideas in there was I guess I'd say a ex-con work program, or the possibility of seeing if there's any grants out there, since we live in an environment today in our state that wants to rehabilitate offenders, that we might be able to find funding for a program to not only put them to work so they don't reoffend, but get our nuisance abatement stuff done too. And if that's the case, you might want them to have a badge. So, I mean, it kind of depends on where you're going.
Do we know anything about the nuisance board that we have now that has not been used since I've been here? What its purpose even is? Is it outside how is it different than the process that we use now, which is, I file a complaint. The complaint, I can do it anonymously or not, depending on what it is. It goes to the department, in this case, code compliance. So they investigate. If the staff determines that there is no nuisance, it doesn't meet the threshold, that's the end of it, case closed. If they do, then they do the investigation. They come present their findings before the Board of Commissioners at a public hearing, and they say, here's what the complaint was. This is what we saw. The board makes a determination there that it is. So, there is still.
You are being the nuisance board.
We are the nuisance board now.
This is putting the nuisance board in. That's what I'm assuming was the old nuisance board before it was taken away from them and picked up by the Board of Commissioners. Is the same as Goldendale's nuisance board, you might say, where it's less work for us, it's less work for staff. So staff would receive the complaint, go out and look at the property, tell the offender or the alleged offender, hey, we got a complaint about, your pile of debris over there. He says, oh, sorry, I'll clean that up, or pound sand, or that's not debris. And then it would go before the nuisance board. Our staff wouldn't have to present the case. Complainant, next door neighbor, you are now told you need to go present your case, just like you would in a court. That's rubbish and trash. We aren't the judge and the jury of that. The nuisance board is, and they might say, well, that's really not trash. Or they might say, line the stuff up in a row. And like Lynn was saying, they do at Golden. Clean up this little section over here, dump that, and we're fine. I guess I'd say it's less off our plate.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because I don't know. I'm really curious. The nuisance board before, where did their authority come from? Because like a group of citizens, again, if they can't make those determinations. What's my appeal rights? What's my, I don't know.
Appeal is here.
I know. So that I'm assuming then, if that's true, then this nuisance board is really their authority is delegated authority from the Board of Commissioners.
Yes, delegated authority in more of a mitigation, trying to work it out before it gets here, and hopefully clean it up to be at least it essentially allows a public process that the person that got complained about can go argue his case and feel like his voice was heard. And sometimes they might agree with him and sometimes they don't. But, when we have our nuisance compliance officer come in here and talk to you about a project, are you offering each time that happens for the complainant to come here and argue his case? Yes. And they just, do they ever do it?
Only a couple times that they have. Generally, they haven't. I can only think of, twice. Neither of them were particularly productive. That's how I'm curious. No, I am. I don't know as far as this nuisance board. Again, I don't know what its function was. Did it exist? Maybe it was pre-nuisance because we didn't have a nuisance ordinance until I don't know anything about it.
I'll get some information. Right now. The computers are not
working right now.
I know it was longstanding folks that have been on that committee, and it has changed, they have had movement though. But
So-
Lynn would be the best person, but it's an appeals board.
Nuisance, and I think the reason for the committee is that nuisance is very subjective.
Oh, yeah.
What's a nuisance to
Right.
you is not. the
Noise
same.
can be a nuisance.
Noise is a nuisance, you know, all these little things, your barking dog can be a nuisance. And do we need barking dogs coming to the commissioner? So that's where I would think that that board was there to try to get neighbors to work together to figure out, you
And
know,
that's
something.
a mitigation process if it's, barking dogs or gun shooting or whatever.
Right.
That gets petitioner and defendant in the same room in front of a board. Is there something we can work out? Is there, or is there just nothing? And now we're gonna have to fight this out.
And so nuisance is one issue that I think, your board is a fine idea. The problem is that I think it's in statute that, is it in statute? I think it's in statute for being able to complain anonymously. And
I don't
that-
know, but I.
And so the difference is that nuisance is one neighbor versus another. There's a nuisance. You can complain anonymously. Code compliance, so code violations are a whole different ballgame.
Right.
Because code violations, you can complain anonymously and there's no going back to figure out who it is. And the code is the code and it's supposed to be, linear, not as much wiggle room. And so that was kind of the facilitation perspective, that kind of a role, because I think a lot of those code compliance violations are people that are living above apartments that, or not apartments, or living space above a garage or something that garage wasn't permitted. It hasn't gone through structural designs, and so it's code violation. How we get through that one, it's going to be interesting.
I don't know that you are getting through that one, because if you can go ask them, please permit your upper floor of your garage if it's even zoned for it, which according to Moshi, it's not zoned because you only have one structure. So it's going up to them and say, sorry, you live here illegally, you need to leave. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to kick somebody out who's living above mom's garage. So I think there's going to be some of these that just don't get solved. Or maybe they get 2 votes to get solved and don't get a third, and that's fine with me. And like I said, the nuisance board, it was just an idea. 2 of you don't like the board and you want with a facilitator and then us being the board, no arguments from me at all. You won't hear any complaints. Done deal. Make it happen. I mean, it only takes 2 to make the next move. So
Right. I'm just always cautious about creating new board. That's why I'm curious about what we already have.
Right.
That there obviously was a reason for it before, and is it unutilized just because we end up with, and the other is like, I don't know who we're gonna get to do this. Would you really volunteer to be the?
And you may not, and the reason it might have went away
With no
is because
staff that
maybe if they appealed there and came here and everybody that lost their appeal.
Well,
so when that's the case, you might as well just get rid of it and do it here. That maybe that's why it didn't get used anymore. I don't know. I mean, I haven't talked to anybody that was alive when it was used.
Right. Or went ever in front of them. Or
So
what kind of cases did they get?
That's
I don't
not
know.
a big issue to me.
Yeah.
I mean, the issue to me that I think is the biggest issue is costs. It's going to be costs of cleanup. What are the ways we're thinking outside the box to fix the cost of cleanup issue, so that we can do more of them and facilitate them faster, better, stronger. That's far more important than if there's a board of a nuisance or not.
Did you guys go through Lynn's email that showed every one of the code compliance violations, the partial number?
I have the stack in my.
Yeah, and I even looked up, the partial numbers and zoomed in on them.
I was gonna do drive-bys, I just haven't got time yet.
And there are some that you can see it's the same parcel number, multiple complaints over multiple years. And literally it's like the wrecking yard. And to go in there and clean that up, you're gonna spend more than the property's worth by far.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, maybe because each one of those vehicles is in all reality worth $500 in scrap. So you could probably submit a bid out to that and somebody might probably give you a fairly low bid because it's right along the highway. That's a lot of scrap metal. That's a lot of value. It might be cheaper than you think it is to clean up. Find the right bidder.
yeah,
That might be the cheapest one we have around here to clean up.
what'd you find on it, Dave?
Not much, just that we did appoint a new person to it in 2018.
I don't know why. That's the other thing that, I'm sorry, with my rabbit holing on the internet, I'm like, what the heck are they appointing and reappointing, and you serve until we tell you you're done. I mean, there's some boards that you're just on there forever. But I often wonder
Some don't
if
have
people
terms
know
of
that they're even
expiration.
still on it anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
if you call
possible.
these guys, they're probably gonna go, I sue for where?
I don't know. We just call Tony and ask him what he's done.
Yeah, what he's
Which one is
done.
that?
This is the
Who is it though?
Tony Guler in White Salmon, replaced Don Struck. The Building Department and Nuisance Board of Appeals.
So we served on it for a good 8 to 10 years and probably never showed up to a
I
meeting.
don't, again, maybe they meet all the time, but
I don't believe they've met for years.
no.
And maybe this is something the former director wanted to have. I don't have any information at all. A lot of times your resolutions give you a history.
Right.
Well, I would either say these boards that are all like this and defunct or inactive, we either need to make them active or remove them. Simple as that. We can always make it up again in 10 years if we decide to use it in 10 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, this had an appointment done in 2018, so that's not that long ago.
That's
as
my
far as
point.
what
But
I
if we
don't-
have multiple boards that are like this that don't get a use, whether it's natural resources or whatever, I don't know why we continue to appoint people to them if we're not using them.
There are one in particular, one as a reference. I think it's the Law and Library Board. That's per statute. You have to have
You
it,
have to have
but
it,
they've not been active.
Mhm.
And it's down to like, yeah, prosecutor, judge, there's like one other person and nobody else on it.
Did you have something? You're just watching the paint dry in here.
He heard put the public employees to work and he got a little scared there with union backlash.
I'd
Send him to my phone number.
listen and learn, maybe help if needed.
I think that's the biggest, I think that's just the biggest fix. We have to explore the options, check the legalities of cheaper abatements until we come up with the answers. And I think I heard on the radio today, Buyers Tree Service was the name that did the abatement over here in Goldendale. And I think it was a house that they did. But same deal, phone call or two would find an answer if it was.
Well,
We
moving
went that
forward, I'm going to try to track down where this group came from. I'll call some of the old timers and find out what they, when it was used, what it was used for, what they really were dealing with.
Say it was probably in all of the 3-ring binders that were in my office when I moved in.
Yeah, it's all the history is probably there.
Well, it was there before it got moved out. I don't remember seeing anything about that though. There's other things that I've saved from back then.
You,
I didn't see anything for that one.
got something else on it? Moving on, is there something else?
Well, that was my part of the, when we were talking nuisance compliance, so.
Okay.
You said do your homework, so I brought in some homework.
You did.
For
Okay,
you to consider and think about.
anything else you want to bring up?
It seems like, did you guys see the email Lynn sent out, talking about to the other, kind of getting the jump on short-term rentals, RV and all that to the other?
Yeah.
Yeah, so moving along.
Board pending issues, since I'm going through Lee's list over here that she's got shared, right? Klickitat Skamania Development Disability Advisory Board. Do we want a commissioner to sit on that, or do we want to appoint a delegate, public health director, public health department employee, or no one? Input?
Just a second, I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to get into my computer like normal.
I stopped. Mine was being super crazy slow, so I said I'll just deal with it later. Because it wouldn't let me get into shared drive. It wouldn't let me get into anything a minute ago. Well,
are you saying you want to sit on it?
no, I don't.
That's what I thought I heard.
No, and then she's got a good point. You can put the health director, which I think is a very important person that has, unless she wants to, or an employee, or no one. We need to make a determination what we want to do there. If no commissioner wants to sit on it, I think we need to reach out to the health director and see if either she does or she knows someone in staff or a volunteer or somebody of that nature, trying to give her guidance on where we can move on item number 2 in our pending list. It's 2 pages long. Is that the choice?
Yeah, I don't have time to do it myself.
Yeah.
If nobody, then I guess.
And I think there could possibly be much better people than us that have an iron in that fire, that are gonna have a little more compassion or passion for it.
You know, the one thing I was thinking is that it doesn't necessarily even have to be an employee. It could be someone in the community that has experience.
And I thought of one that definitely has passion for it, has an iron in that fire. But they're on this side of the county, and this is a Skamania thing.
It's countywide.
And well, I know, but they're also a very busy person. So I guess it comes down to how you guys want to do it. You want to just open it? We can throw that on our list of appointments.
I think that would be great. Yep, sure.
Nice.
Somebody, yeah, sounds good. Somebody wants to.
Let's add that to our list, present it to Mr. Lou over there at the paper. And open it up for the world.
They would have to apply to that organization.
Right, we would hear the applications and submit our recommendation to that board for acceptance. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying was, when they started this whole process, they have an application to fill out. So like if one of you guys wanted to be on this board, you'd have to fill out an application.
Well, got it.
Maybe it's changed now, I don't know.
Discussion regarding possible citizen committees, natural resources land committee to review EOZ. I think we've already discussed that. Tax title of properties. Further discussion regarding the grant writer position. Well, you guys are just ready to bang the gavel today.
Some of these are just to keep before.
They're just, you don't have to be dealt with it.
Yeah,
It's just
No, I'm
keep
just
it-
in case there's any new thoughts.
Yeah.
What is this on here for Lloyd Decay when he had the safe routes for school in White Sand?
Yeah,
I thought we already signed
we
the
did.
memorandum and all that. Why is this here?
We
Is
could
there something
probably,
new?
we could, I don't believe so. I think they, other than maybe just to keep it on there, so if they wanted to report back whether they were awarded something or not, I guess. But we probably could take that issue off there, because we did.
I was gonna say, I thought we actually.
Yeah, we did.
Might eventually get it down to one page.
So at that, he had to talk. Did Public Works actually bring that back before you
I thought
guys?
so.
I thought we
Right.
signed something.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One thing I have, so being appointed for the liaison for the tribe, would it be a good idea for the board to send a letter to the tribe, letting them know, trying to make that
Sort of
introduction?
Official.
Officially.
Sending
that
him a letter
way.
that you're the official delegate.
Yep,
Yeah.
I don't know. Procedural, but it probably wouldn't hurt.
okay,
I can have a draft ready for you to review next week.
perfect.
What is the request to vacate this road that's up on Dallas Mountain Road?
It's.
I know where the road is. I actually drove it 2 years ago. What a mistake. Never ever drive that road.
Can't talk why they wanted to be.
If I was in the Jeep, it would have been fine. I was in my truck. What's the process for vacating that road? Do we have to push for that, or does they bring?
No, I think that, I mean, a citizen or citizens brought in a request that went to Public Works for, they would come and make some kind of recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. There then would be, if we decided to move forward or even potentially consider moving forward, there would have to be a public hearing. Everybody would get an opportunity to say yay or nay on it, and then.
Well, that's why
the
my
board-
question is, why is it on here? So citizens probably brought it up, and that's kind of where the end of it is.
My understanding was the folks that were interested in it kind of withdrew for the time being, even moving forward. And I think it is just sort of idling in
Because I don't think
Public Works.
It's not necessarily a used road.
I'll ask Gordy.
I mean, we use it fire wise if we
Right.
have to, but
I mean, it's a big, for me, generally, any discussion about vacating a road, everybody that has any property that is accessed by the road has to be on board with before it even, and even then, it's because it's public.
well, yeah, and it doesn't hurt us to keep it.
No.
It's not like we're out there maintaining it.
Does that road go to state land too?
See, and that's right. I think that was one of the issues with it, is that, and I think that's why it kind of stalled, because I think it was almost like, well, I don't know that it can go anywhere.
Right. And that's yeah.
Like we had one
I guess
out
I was saying I was
somewhere
trying
else.
to remove it from the list.
Right.
We'll-
So yeah,
we'll
maybe
keep
follow
on
with
this
Gordy
for
as
now.
far as if it's even
Okay.
still
Get an update.
alive, and if it's not, we can just take it off the list.
Yeah. Other than that, that's pretty much my list for today.
Okay. Anything else?
Not that
Okay,
it
this one looks like it needs.
Oh, okay. As far as pending issues or anything else
Um,
that you want to bring up?
you know, there was a lot of public comment today.
Was there?
Yeah, it seemed like.
Dave, I didn't see the
And I
steam
try to-
rolling out of anybody's ears.
Try to take some notes. And I didn't want to say anything because I want to give the public time, but some of those things, like even with like Lund Hill, for example, we have the energy overlay zone. Lund Hill still went and did a full FEIS on it. And they also went through SEPA to do that FEIS. And every SEPA process has a public comment period. And I believe the one property there who had an issue raised comment, and the landowner addressed their comment.
Right, so my understanding was they had that one person that lives there addressed 5 different things. Most of them had to do with ecology or habitat or spotted frogs or that rattlesnake's endangered, or how are the deer going to migrate. Nowhere in his 5 statements did he say, please don't put solar panels 500 feet from my front door. Well, Fish and Wildlife came back and pretty much said, well, this isn't an endangered animal. That's not an endangered animal, so we don't regulate those. This and this we got handled, done. And so his concerns got addressed that way, and now he's got solar panels 500 feet from his door. He probably should have said, please don't put solar panels 500 feet from my door. But nobody asked at that time. And that's what I think this group is afraid of. That I think it's a different scenario.
So where I was trying to go with that though is that I'm positive that through any conditional use permit process, Mochi is going to determine and it's going to be considered significant. So there will be a full FEIS done. So there will be, because everybody's asking about the process.
So did I just hear you say that you believe it will be a significant determination on the SEPA? Not that you make the decision or I make the decision. It's Mochi that makes the decision.
It's Mochi, but I'm sure most like solar companies like Lund Hill, they just do an FEIS because time is money. You know what I mean?
Right. So this year,
and the amount of time it takes you to do an FEIS versus just doing a SEPA threshold determination to answer all the questions, it's about the same amount of time.
I agree. I don't think this is the solar is gonna be a mitigated.
No.
They're just gonna go through the whole thing.
Right. And that, so when, I hear what everybody's saying here, and to me, it sounds like the process, the way it's set up, there will be adequate time during it to have all the questions answered, to all of the lists of things. I think we all got an email from Cease with, 47 different, lists of.
Well, then it wasn't my list then.
Do this.
Mine's only got about 18.
Oh, is that all?
I think it is only 18.
Well, if it's only 18, it could be my list.
I don't know. I'd have to look back through it, but
I've been accruing my own list of things that I would like to see in code, and I answered somebody with that list, and next thing I knew, it was floating around the ether web.
Oh.
So did your list include a 5% royalty?
To the city of Goldendale. Yes, well, to the county, and then the county's gonna sign that over.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then it must
I guess
must
was
be your
It's
list.
my list.
Well, okay, well, that's different.
No, their list has about 45 items on it. It's been emailed to everybody, and some of them are just way out there. Not that some of mine aren't out there,
But I guess the only point I want to make is that, I definitely hear everything that everybody's saying, and I'm keeping, a record of all of their concerns are the same concerns that we have, I think. And it'll be good to have these conversations, and it'll be good to go do this tour.
I would like next month-ish, when we get done with the tour, to have some time to regroup, to have us sit down with Mochi, because I think it would be in the best interest of her completing any future applications on large-scale solar. I think it would be in the best interest of the citizens out there to hear all of our lists, or what we would like to see in future mitigations, or whether we put it in the statute or just verbally say it. I think that would be a good thing, but just throw it out there.
So did you, I can't remember, being that was one of your things, the royalty or whatever, I think we brought that up in one of our previous meetings. Did we ever ask the prosecutor for
I brought it up and it died, so it's one of those I'm waiting for more than one person or the chairman to, I said, unfortunately, I think I might be with my nuisance list and royalty issue, and we might be asking for some legal opinions.
We did actually look into that. I apologize if that didn't get forwarded to you. We're not finding any ability to impose royalties like with the landfill, because there's specific statutes that authorize the fees that were imposed by the county and specific to landfills and waste facility sites that are not found in general statutes regulating other business activities. So it's because of a specific authorization by the legislature for local municipalities and counties to impose that fee is that how we were able to do that. This is a question that's come up over the years, piqued my interest, piqued my deputy's interest. We looked into it, and what we found was that that royalty was a result, that revenue stream is a result of specific statutory authorization that is not present related to the renewable energy field.
Okay, yeah, no, where I found it was DNR does royalties for oil and gas on their DNR lands. So
yeah, that's something else altogether from what the county can impose, though.
Right, okay. Scratch number 18 off my list.
Okay.
It's just the common thought is out there from the general public is, oh, now we're gonna have windmills or solar panels or whatever, that's gonna lower our PUD bill. And it's like, no, it has nothing to do with your PUD bill. We don't enter into a contract with the solar company to lower your PUD bill. It's a private business, that's not how it works.
Right. Just like when they built the gas-fired generation plant in Golddale, did that lower anybody's PUD bill in Golddale?
The standard
No, it's a
claim out there is that it should. We should have the lowest power rates in the country by all the greeny stuff we have around here. And it's, unfortunately, you can tell them a million times that's not how it works. It's a private company. They do with the power they create what they want to do with it. I was just trying to get a little kickback for my little town here, because I look at, we might continue to have this discussion later. If developments happen with solar in regard of this side of 97, yeah, the taxing districts are going to make some money. You know, rural 7 will get some fire truck money, and the hospital will get some money, and the library will get some money. But that doesn't give this town any money. It goes right here in the county coffers. For us to spend on economic development where we currently spend our economic development dollars. So there will be a discussion on that eventually.
All right, anything else?
How are things going at state for bills that you've been testifying on? Have you been feeling you can make any impact at all, or?
No.
The process this year with
I haven't even tried hard this year because you're just locked out. I did hear rumor that the police canine bill, they were going to restrict your ability and when you can or can't use a police canine, that's dying and or dead. So thank goodness for that one. But yeah, no, you're so locked out of the process this year, and they're just not listening.
Yeah, I'll do an update because I'll get a brief, and we've got a cutoff date coming up. So next Tuesday, so I'll get it on Friday, and I'll bring the lit. What I'm finally figuring out so they went back to, we still get the full super list, which again, my thing's on Friday. It's always scary when the staff is saying, okay, we're on page 89 of 237. And you're just like, and I'm like, you know, I've got things bookmarked now so you can find, you know, your way. But we used to have, you had this super list, but you had the hot sheet, which was basically the things that we're not tracking 1,000. I mean, we're tracking 1,000 bills, but you cannot be engaged in any meaningful focused on 1,000 bills, or, you know, and that's actually low. You know, usual is 5,000. But so you've got your maybe 50 that you're really watching. So we've gone back to that where we're getting both. And they do the staff briefs off the big list, but we do get the ones that we're tracking every week that's got what's going on with them. We have cutoff coming up, so I'll bring that in as far as what it looks like we're looking at. But again, with the caveat that anything that has any budget component, they can resurrect even after cutoff until they're out of town. So if there's a fiscal note, if there's anything, just because it died in committee, because the cutoff, it hasn't got out of the house of origin, that doesn't mean it's really dead. If somebody really wants to go back in and pull it out, if you got the horsepower to do it,
Yeah,
you can do it, and all you have to do is make a case that it's necessary to implement the budget, and they do it all the time. So I've seen lots of dead horses that have been resurrected before at the last minute. But I can do that. There's not really, we're tracking, but as to your question about, are we getting any traction on stuff? It's the strangest year where you just really can't, the way you testify, the way you sign in, it's really, in some ways it's nice that there is so much input that's happening now because it's all virtual.
I think it's squeaky wheel input.
No, well, the problem is, that you'll get something where there might be 1,000 people signing up. Well, it used to be, it wasn't that they didn't necessarily, like I'm good that 1,000 people feel like they can have, but what happens is there's such a crowd. How do I, as a, in my role as a county commissioner, get their attention as one of the multitude? And it's
Mail-in voting.
It's great access, but
the noise drowns
Yeah,
out
I don't
all.
think it's great access because
nobody is getting access.
The legislators don't even see that stuff.
No.
It's just piled into the public record. They would have to go in and search.
And find it.
In order to find anything. And you can't tell me that they are.
Right.
So I think they love it. Nobody's screaming in their ear. Nobody's hollering at them. It's just do whatever they want kind of thing.
Did you forward that email from Tom Lannon on the Timber County caucuses to these guys about the bill on the constitutional amendment for natural resources and indefeasible? I don't know if you've been tracking on that one, Dave.
It doesn't ring a bell, which
It was this morning.
was it this, I know, but that bill's been around.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I got 2 Timber Counties things. That's what I thought you were talking about, but no, I didn't get the actual one.
It would be from the BoCC.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe it is. Yep, there it is.
I don't know. There's a few bills that, when taken together.
Oh, this is the Skamania County.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know, I read that.
Oh, I do have a couple items. I'm start writing myself notes. I'm getting starting to scare myself.
What's your item?
I did get had a conversation from Mrs. Miller in Glenwood in behalf of really the Glenwood fire district up there. They had an issue, and you might have heard it back in 2019. They ran a levy lid lift back in 2019 that they put on the ballot. It passed, so they in there, and I haven't really done the research on it because I said I would bring it up to see if we had any interest. So they did their levy, and then they needed a new brush truck. Their levy was that got approved in 19 for collection in. There was some issue with it. It was like in 20 or 21, I want to say. Well, it turned out the title, the way it went out to the voters was, I don't know who challenged it or whatever happened, but it was determined to be invalid and they couldn't actually collect the levy. They had gone out in the interim period between when they had their levy had been approved, but they hadn't collected it. The brush truck died. They went and bought a new brush truck, which they got interim financing because they knew that, which I guess they worked with the treasurer. They were going to get this levy funding. The treasurer helped them.
Was this levy just for the brush truck?
No, it was just a general levy.
General levy.
But they knew what they had coming in. They needed to go. And so this new truck was going to be about $60,000. It was going to get paid for from when the levy proceeds came in over a period of time, not all at once. So they went to, I think, Kashmir Valley Bank and worked with the treasurer, and they got basically an advance on their levy. Bought the truck, then they found out, oh, their levy was not valid. They're not gonna be able to collect any money. And they're fine now. They're gonna rerun so they can do it, but they have to make their first payment, which I want to say is $6,000. And they're okay as a district. It's like they're not gonna default or anything, but they were asking, is that something the county in the interim could help them either through the community development fund or something to make, the $6,000 payment.
Who asked this?
What's her? Mrs. Miller, Harry's wife. Harry's wife, yeah, up in Glenwood. I think it's
ranching Millers?
Yeah, the ranching Millers up there. And so she called me on Friday, and I said I would raise the issue. I said if it's going to go, you could make a request to the KC for community development dollars for a help with a fire truck.
I guess I don't understand. So the first payment of $6,000, is that like covering the first year or something of this?
I think it's two payments a year. One in, I want to say it's like after, because the levy proceeds would come in like April and October, like when we pay our property tax. And
So there might be one more payment before they ever get their levy put in place.
Right, and so they're not saying they're not, but they're going to, so they have to, I'm assuming they have to make their first payment in May or June, and then another one in November, and they're not gonna have any levy proceeds.
Well, if you want my opinion on whether I think we should cover it or not, and you may or may not.
Well, it's your opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
I am 100% absolutely in favor of it. I think that is what the KC dollars should be going for, and not for buildings, for the most part.
Okay, these are not going to be 09.
I understand some buildings, but yes,
Yeah.
I understand that.
I don't think we've ever used community development dollars for buildings, but
Correct.
they usually, most of it has gone to fire districts.
Lately, yes.
No, in its whole history, historically, the vast majority of that money went to fire districts for fire trucks, equipment, turnouts. That's where the money, it pretty much for years, that's really what it went to, was fire districts. So there may be a misunderstanding out there that that's not true, but the numbers prove out.
Future discussion.
Right.
I would send it over to McClure and see where he can dig something up.
Yeah, to help them out.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a further discussion if they don't approve their levy, and then what are they gonna do? That'll be a different
scary day.
Yeah. I mean, at least the total thing is,
Well, I'm
it's
kind of
$60,000.
surprised they did a levy without coming and asking just for funding.
Most fire districts run their own levies.
Yeah.
Well, I fully aware of that.
I think they wanted because I have some recollection of the debate going on where they said we really need a new brush truck and we need to be able to pay for it. And so this is why we need the levy increase. And the voters said, okay. And it's a technical issue. So
verbiage or.
Yeah, it was somehow the way it
Well, the
was.
hospital lost that one because they didn't have dissenting viewpoint in the voter guide.
Oh.
Well,
And their argument was if that language was approved to go on the ballot, does the county, that was the case they were trying to make to me, is that we have some culpability because
we allowed it.
Because we allowed it on the ballot.
How many dollars a year do we have in, let's say, community development that would be able to be used for something like that?
50,000 a year is what we budget for that.
This year, we have, I believe it's 85.
Is available because there's some
There was left
fund
over from
balance.
last
Yes.
year? Okay.
So that carries over.
Yeah.
So as far as community development dollars, there's 50 grand a year that we can use somewhere in the county.
Right.
If not, it's carried over to the next year.
Right.
I believe we're coming up on the payoff almost.
where that's done?
Yeah, that's gonna have to be a discussion of the board to
We'll have to-
rescind
you guys
that,
have to
because
start
we
over.
had diverted. Because it used to be 350,000, We've had 300,000 that's been going into, that's why it's only 50 that goes in there. 300,000 has been going into the, I'm just gonna call it the radio fund, to build the fund back and then potentially pay for the 2 other sites, which there is now adequate. We're coming up on the commitment we made 10 years that we were gonna divert that money, and that's a discussion.
That's what happened to that. Okay, that's a little, see, that's, I said, that was gonna be future discussion.
Right.
Because 10 years ago, all of a sudden, community development dollars just went in the toilet.
Right. No, they
So that was
funded
for
that.
radio fund.
It was for the radio.
It was
And
used for
hopefully-
community development.
It was used for community
So it
development.
is,
That's correct.
So, yeah.
That was my argument, is why those dollars were benefiting every single citizen in the county.
Where do you
versus-
guys feel about essentially a levy for the radio towers to update themselves when they come time versus coming back to us for more money later? Are you guys fans of them having a levy for the radio tower?
I don't know.
I was always a fan of getting grants to build them in the first place because they were unfunded mandates from the feds.
Well, I get it, but they're now built.
Right. I mean, I'm open to the discussion. I mean, I think things have to be paid for, and I think. You know,
I would like the community development dollars to go back to be more personally touched in the community than the radio towers. Not that the radio towers are a bad idea, and if that's where they went,
right.
No complaints here. But I would like to see them put back in versus continuing to stay on so that we can raise a bank account for when the dang thing breaks down in 10 years and needs replaced.
Well, other than what do you do when the things break down in 10 years and they have to be replaced?
Well, hopefully you have a levy.
Well, if you have a
You could
levy,
start
maybe
stockpiling bank account money,
right.
So that you have a reserve fund built up when they do need replaced.
Okay.
That's my thinking. That's why I was kind of mentioning to them, I would like to see their proposal on a levy proposal. So that would mean that we're not necessarily paying for them anymore. The users are paying via a levy and just stacking the money in the bank. And then when they need replaced, the money's there, take it. Just like a BR&R with cars. Then we can go back to using that money as other sources. Because yeah, if we're not gonna do that, I don't wanna take the 300 grand out that we're putting down, because we're gonna need to build up the bank account so that when you have to pay 20 million later, you've got the money there.
Sounds like a budget discussion.
It sounds like a budget discussion. Okay, so do I have general, as far as back to the Glenwood, that we would at least invite them to apply, you know?
Yeah.
And
Get 'em
see
in
if,
touch with Dave.
get them in touch and see if there's something we can do.
I think I already told you guys, I sent Goldendale over to them for the Goldendale Life Pack that isn't working, and they haven't been able to contact the city for some reason. That's all in the discussion. So same idea.
So is it their like defibrillator? Is that what?
Yeah, we did, well, I wouldn't say we, I was sitting over there. The county did one for Rural 7 2 years ago, I think. And I want to say it's 10 grand and the city has 5 grand or something of that nature. I'm just throwing the number off the top of my head.
Good, that might be a good project. Again, there's 50,000 allocated for stuff.
So no, I'm fine. Tell Ms. Miller I said yes. I don't know that Ms. Miller likes me very much, but that doesn't matter.
Oh, and also, and I never did see that I got it. I also had a call on Friday from Columbia County Commissioner. They're sending a letter, which I don't recall ever seeing, that because they have the Snake River dams are in that's southeast part of Washington, the little Soton, Garfield, Columbia, the little rural counties over there. They're sending a letter because there's some legislation about breaching the Snake River dams again, and they wanted to know if we would support not supporting, and I said, I can't speak for I will talk to my partners, but I suspect that has always been our position, that we are not in favor of breaching dams, but I don't know.
Is this federal legislation or state?
I got the impression that it was,
It's not the legislator from Idaho.
Yes,
who put
that's
that
who it is.
Big project together.
Yes.
Who's trying to think outside the box that
Yeah.
includes breaching the dam.
right, that's who it is.
Okay. Has any of you
I don't
heard
know
about
anything,
any
right.
of it at all? Looked it up?
Oh, I know all about it. I'm usually the one talking and I'm gonna be the one listening.
So again, I have not seen.
I
what
am
they're-
a fishing guide by nature.
Right.
I am well aware of the Snake River dams. I am well aware of heap leach mining. I am well aware of pebble mining. Yeah, no, I'm well aware.
Well, I can tell you one thing right now. I bet you Texas wishes they had more dams today.
Like rolling blackouts.
No, I did chuckle at that comment that the one citizen made about that today.
Sherry.
Yeah. So I would say when we get, I said, send us your.
So you're in favor of.
I'm not,
keeping the Snake
again,
River
I
dams?
don't, I am in favor of leaving the Snake River dams.
Okay.
So
unless I hear some,
Well,
it's part
you
of
as a
some larger.
personal nature or in
Yeah.
favor of leaving the dams.
Right.
So I was, on the natural resources side and the Orca task force and all that was
Right.
pushing towards removing the dams. And I also got to go to the science symposiums on fisheries every year that you guys would graciously send me to.
Yeah,
and,
graciously.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But one of them
No,
was
thanks.
really interesting that I went to that showed that, the Orca was the trying to push for the removal of Snake River Dam, saying that it would save the orcas.
Right.
When the Snake River dams, it was showed that the orcas, less than 2% of their diet was Snake River fish. And if you look at like on the other calls for the mid-Columbia, the Snake River dams actually have a very high survivability rate for passage. I don't know why you would, if we're going to keep putting more solar and wind in the air, we have to have backup or when it doesn't. So, and if the Columbia County Commissioners are asking for our support, I would gladly give it, so long as they give our support when we need some.
Right. So I guess when they're going to send a draft over of what, and I said we would take a look at it. So I think they don't want us to sign on to they would like a letter from us supporting their position, I think. Not, so
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in reading it.
reading what they're.
There were some interesting parts of the legislation that he's talking about pushing forward that, it all comes down to if money's free and you can do everything.
Right. Right.
It's,
Yeah.
billions and billions of dollars.
Right. Okay, that's everything on my list. Anything else? Okay, we're good.
I will let you know how I feel about the dam now that you.
Yeah, okay.
Now that you asked.
Yes.
You just moved right along. No, not in favor.
Well, you usually are.
I'm usually the first. That's what I said. I was waiting to be the last this time. Not in favor of breaching the dams.
Okay. I didn't know. I have some very colorful conversation with my friends in Astoria. So-
Well, I think there's some good things that could.
Yeah,
come
it's,
from breaching the dam. I do think fish migration would be much better off without the dams in place. But I think you have big issues when you do breach the dam too, and I don't think the pros outweigh the cons, so.
Right. Not yet, not until we get fusion.
I was gonna say, I love that comment somebody was saying earlier, we need to stop thinking about wind and solar, and I'm like, I haven't heard nuclear yet, nobody's come in with a nuclear plan. I would be listening to nuclear.
No more hoops.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're good. I would entertain a motion. Yes.
All right, we don't have a workshop Thursday, do we?
No.
Okay. Before we do, question before I motion, Radio Thursday morning, do we each call into that individually on our own phones now, since we're not gonna be here?
Yes.
Can.
I'm not driving up just to.
Well,
To have a radio interview.
Okay, got it. So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn until next Tuesday.
Second. Second. Motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting. We have no workshop scheduled. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks, on the.
Are you gonna add the phone number, call-in number for that radio thing on the calendar, or give it to me or email it to me?
It should already be there, and I'll double check and make sure.
Okay. Radio. I see nothing, Miss Lee.
Okay, I will get it to you.
Oh, I assume it has